Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
just watching it, it looks, if the fire continues to go like this, it's continue to spread throughout the home, that person or more than one person, they're not going to have anywhere else to go. You know, and that's another situation right there. But fire crews, they can't put out this fire. And, you know, as Jeff and Wynn was saying, this area is very dry. It's a desert. And so hopefully they're able to figure something out soon, but at this point, it's not looking good, especially for that person inside the home.
It is not looking good. And we talked about, you had mentioned that you had just got information in that the suspect was telling people not to approach the home. It would be interesting to also learn whether or not that suspect has been in contact with authorities and if they are communicating with one another, and who may have been possibly trying to, you know, even get to that home or get inside that home, whether it was relatives or neighbors or someone who may know the suspect. But it will be interesting to figure out what the relationship is between the firehouse and the suspect's home, whether or not he knew the firefighter or any of the firefighters there, what type of relationship, or if he was upset about something. Again, that's just speculation, but it's just very odd when you have a shooting at a fire station and now the suspect's home is on fire.
Yeah, I mean, just a scary situation. And you know, it's just, there's a lot of questions as to why this is happening, what caused this person, you know, what is the motive. That definitely is going to take some time. But yeah, you can see thick black smoke coming from this home. You know, as far as the suspect goes, you know, we're still trying to figure out if this is one person, more than one person. But I mean, DeMarco, looking at this home, it's already, it's getting pretty bad. I mean, this fire continues to burn, and it's thick black smoke, so definitely will burn for quite a while. But as you can see, fire crews, they are, you know, being cautious about this whole thing, and they're not putting out this fire yet.
And Chris, we're getting some information. There are reports, we can't confirm this just yet, but reports that someone, a man, has been found in the front of the home, in the front yard of the home, apparently dead from a self-inflicted wound. So we're not sure if that is the suspect or if that is a victim. But it appears that that person has been found in the yard of the home of a self-inflicted wound. Now, you automatically assume that that is suicide as well, but we can't confirm that just yet. But there are reports that they are working that angle of the criminal investigation. And again, that explains why authorities are sort of staying back, you know, from putting this fire out, because one, they don't know who's inside the home, and then they probably don't know whether or not this person may have acted alone. Initial reports are saying that there is only just one suspect that may be involved in the situation, but, you know, just to play it safe, one, you don't know what's inside that home, if there are explosives, any type of ammunition that could easily go off in a fire, but also, you know, two, whether or not this person acted alone, and there may be other people inside. Hopefully no one is inside.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously this is a live shot with Sky 9. We want to be careful not to show you that body, but of course this is live television, so if we do, we want to apologize in advance. But it's interesting, DeMarco, to see this home. I mean, this is an isolated home, and it's a very large home.
It's a beautiful home.
It's a beautiful home, so whoever who lives there, I mean, probably spent some good money on it, but we're not sure who this person is, if this is a person that is well known in that community. But we do know that, you know, the original crime, the original shooting happened about 15 minutes away. That's 15 minutes driving. So, you know, I think it's about 9.6 miles according to Google. So, I mean, that is, you know, quite a ways to go from where this shooting happened. And
Jeff DeWynn, you've been speaking with Chris all morning long. Can you tell us what the latest is? Are you headed in this direction?
Yeah, DeMarco, we're still on the freeway. We're on the 15 heading up towards, the 14 heading up towards the Antelope Valley. You know, both of you guys were talking about how law enforcement has to be very careful because of the threats that were made earlier. And, you know, as someone who grew up in Southern California, I can tell you that a lot of folks up in the Antelope Valley are folks who are hunters, and a lot of times one of the concerns when you have a fire like this is that there might be ammunition in the home. And so you kind of want to take a defensive posture as well and not rush in there for fear that, you know, you might have live ammunition exploding from the heat. We can see from our chopper images that, like you both mentioned, this is a very large property. So So in a sense, it's good that this is a remote area because you don't have clusters of homes, you don't have like a development. But having said that, there is a lot of dry vegetation around this property. We do see a certain amount of clearance around the property, which is a good thing. Right now, when you're looking at the smoke, you can see basically the dark smoke going straight vertically into the air. So the wind conditions are not all that threatening because a lot of times when the wind whips through the Antelope Valley, as we know, it can get very windy up here. A lot of the embers can travel, and statistically, historically, what we've seen in the past is that a piece of ember can sometimes travel as far as a mile and a mile and a half, and that can spark a fire at a neighboring home or, you know, a neighboring structure. So right now, the good news is that as we are driving up here, the wind isn't very strong right now, but certainly, you know, it's certainly a reason for law enforcement as well as the fire department to take a rather defensive posture to not just rush in there, given the possible threats that might be inside that property, guys.
And Jeff, I know you're working your sources and you're en route. Have you been able to find out any more information, even from you know, Twitter, what the relation is between the fire station and the suspect's home? And also, we've been getting reports into our newsroom that a man has been found dead in the front yard of the home from a self-inflicted wound.
Yeah, forgive me. You know, I think you're a little bit ahead of the curve than I am right now, because one of the problems that I face as I drive up to the Antelope Valley is that cell reception is pretty spotty, so it'll cut in and out, and so I'm having a hard time getting in touch with some of my contacts. There are moments where my phone will just basically lose reception because it's rather remote up here, so thank goodness we've got our assignment desk working so hard because a lot of our assignment desk folks have great contacts as well.
And Jeff,
so,
just a second, we're getting a tweet from the LA County Fire Department. As we mentioned, one person was shot, at least one person was shot and taken to the hospital at this fire station. LA County Fire just tweeted saying, "It is with heavy hearts that the LA County Fire Department confirms that a tragic shooting happened at approximately 10:55 a.m. today at Fire Station 81 in Agua Dulce. The department is still in the process of gathering additional information and are cooperating with law enforcement throughout this ongoing incident. They'll provide updated information when available." And DeMarco, when you hear words like "with heavy hearts,"
it makes you think
a tragic shooting,
it's one of their own.
Yeah.
You know, and of course we can't assume that, but it does, you know, appear that it may be, you know, a firefighter, or that firefighter that was shot. And we heard about the victim that was transported to the hospital, airlifted, with multiple gunshot wounds. Anytime you hear multiple gunshot wounds, too, that's never anything that is good to report there. And again, folks, this is the Fire Department Station 81 in the 8700 block of Sierra Highway. The scene has been unfolding now for at least more than an hour or so, and we just got that information that someone has succumbed to their injuries. Also adding to this report that the suspect, it may be the suspect, but we're getting reports that a man has been found dead in the front yard of this home here. But when you think about, you know, not seeing, you know, engines and firefighters rushing to this home to put that fire out, one, again, you don't know if somebody else is on the inside. Two, you don't know if the place has explosives. But three, you know, after a firefighter has been shot, I think they're all erring on the side of caution and saying, hey, you know, let's fall back. Completely.
And, you know, looking at this live shot right here, you know, it's a pretty isolated area. You've got this one large home, but there's no neighbors. So, you know, they can wait. They can let that fire burn out. You know, if you're just watching us right now, at this point, we know there's at least 2 locations that are a part of this active shooting investigation. There could potentially be a third scene that we're still waiting to hear. But this all started out in Agua Dulce at the fire station just shortly before 11 o'clock, about an hour ago. And then there were calls to this home of this fire and, you know, reports of this suspect inside the home. And you know, it's one of those situations where, you know, fire crews didn't know if there was one person or 2 people involved. But we're also hearing that that suspect was telling people that if anyone approached the home, that they would shoot him. And as DeMarco has been saying, there's also reports that there's somebody who may have died and from a self-inflicted gunshot wound that we're all still waiting to confirm. But as you can see in this active live shot from Sky 9, definitely this home continues to burn. But it's interesting, DeMarco, the fire is staying to that one area. I thought it would spread a little faster to other parts of the home, but it seems it's just that one spot that continues to burn.
It's also a difference in what that home may be built in, what it's made of in that area that could be keeping that fire closely, especially when you talk about these expensive homes that have expensive art and things for that. They build these firewalls where they can't spread, but in the event of a wildfire, clearly can't stand up to that. But it is, you're right, it is specifically stationed to that area. And that's a tweet up there. I can't read that because I don't have my glasses or contacts in, Chris.
Yeah, so this is a tweet that I just told you about from LA County Fire. As we mentioned, at least one person was taken to the hospital that was shot inside that fire station. We're still trying to confirm who this person is, but LA County Fire sending this tweet saying, "It is with heavy hearts that the LA County Fire Department confirms that a tragic shooting occurred at approximately 10:55 a.m. today at Fire Station 81 in Agua Dulce. The department is still in the process of gathering additional information and are cooperating with law enforcement throughout this ongoing incident." Just hearing the words heavy hearts and tragic shooting are not things that we want to be coming from a fire station when, so many of these firefighters are true heroes and, big parts of our community in the Agua Dulce community and, even as far as Acton. But the picture that you're looking at right now is a live look of this neighborhood. And it seems that there are several homes in that neighborhood, DeMarco, but this one is kind of isolated back towards the back part of the hill.
That's the nature of that area, too. They're all spread out, and probably because of the size of the homes there. But again, going back to the heavy heart comment there with heavy hearts, you rarely hear that coming from, firefighters or, police, even when they're talking about, and not that they don't care about someone that they don't know or whatever, but whenever they use that wording, it does raise an alarm that the firefighter that was involved in the situation, that things may not be looking too good or may have taken a turn for the worse. Again, with someone being transported, airlifted to the hospital with multiple gunshot wounds, that's never a good sign.
And we want to let you know that you're watching KCAL 9 News at noon. Chris Holmstrom here alongside DeMarco Morgan, where we are following breaking news in two different locations, in Agua Dulce, also in Acton as well. If you're not familiar with this area, it's about 45 miles north of Los Angeles. It all started around 10:54 this morning. An active shooter investigation call was placed. Apparently, at least one person was shot at one of the fire stations, Fire Station 81 in Agua Dulce. Deputies responded to the scene. That shooter was gone. Then a few minutes later, they got a call about a fire in Acton. That's about 15 minutes away from where the shooting happened. And that's what you're looking at right now. This is a live look at that home that is burning. That's where the possible suspect may have went. There's also reports saying that this person was telling people that if they approached the home, they would shoot them. So as you could see right now with DeMarco, crews are staying back. Fire crews are staying back as well, letting this home burn as they try to figure out, is there one person? Is there more than one person? And, how dangerous is it to approach that actual home?
And you mentioned that there are reports that the suspect was telling people to stay away. We're also getting reports that a body has been found in the front yard of this home, apparently deceased from a self-inflicted wound. So we're not sure if that was indeed the suspect. We can't confirm that information. We've seen it happen time and time again in situations like this where the suspect will sort of, quote unquote, for lack of a better word, go out with a blaze of glory whenever they do a situation or take, police on a wild goose chase or something like this of that nature. But not sure if that is indeed the suspect, but apparently a body has been located in the front yard of this home. We talked about why you still see smoke, black smoke, thick black smoke, and flames still coming out of this home, and firefighters aren't running as we would normally see them running to a situation like this to put out flames. When you have a firefighter who's already been injured and shot and possibly taking a turn for the worse, we're still not sure of that nature, but you can understand why they're saying, look, let's fall back.
Yeah, for
sure. We're
not
sure what's inside the home. We're not sure who's inside the home, if this suspect may have acted alone or not. But they do have this area pretty much cordoned off, and it has turned into two major crime scenes now.
Yeah, for sure. And you just hope that there are not more people inside that home. We don't want this, the story to get any more heartbreaking than it already is. But definitely still a lot of information and questions that we have. I know we saw during the live shot, the deputies are out there, and obviously there's people who live in that neighborhood, people who work in that neighborhood, and we saw deputies going up to them, asking questions. Their hands were up, just making sure that they weren't a possible suspect, because there wasn't a lot of information as to who this person is. Is it a man? Is it a woman? Older, younger, etc.? That we still don't know. But you can definitely understand why deputies have to be cautious and careful, and make sure to question everyone who's seen around this home. Obviously, this home is up in the hills, and it's an isolated area, but there still are some other homes that are there right now. Mm-hmm. But one of the good things is that it is dry, but there's not a lot of homes nearby. So if that fire were to spread, it wouldn't go too far, and that's probably another reason why they're able to kind of stand back and just figure out what's going on. And at this point, it's likely that they will probably let that fire continue to burn, because they want to be cautious. If there's firearms or someone else in there, or bombs or what have you, that's not something that they want to jump right into, obviously. But to hear that one person potentially has died, just heartbreaking, especially since it happened at a fire station, and people just doing their jobs, or people going in for help.
That's the thing. You start off a day. I mean, we all start off our days not knowing what could possibly happen. Never imagining something like this, of this nature, could happen as well. But it does, and it's just proof that it can take place. There's currently no information right now about whether or not the suspect has still been in contact with officers, aside from the fact that there are reports that a body has been found in the front yard there. The helicopter here is apparently dropping a medic down to, I guess, try and check on that person to see whether or not, I'm not sure if they're moving, but to check on the condition of the person who is in front of this home. We are hearing that that person may be dead from a self-inflicted gun wound, but of course, you want to check it out and make sure that the person is just not unconscious. Could possibly be unconscious there from the wound there and still breathing. But again, this happened at 10:55. The worst of the worst. We're hearing of a possible fatality here, and you talked about it in the tweet there from authorities. Just beginning, it is with heavy hearts that the L.A. County Fire Department confirms that a tragic shooting occurred approximately 10:55 a.m. today. 81 there. The department is still in the process of gathering additional information, and they are cooperating with law enforcement. That tells me enough. Yeah. Right there. And I'm almost certain that if you do have a loved one that works at that fire station, or that works in that area, or that lives in this area, you want to, if at all possible, stay away and contact your local police department. I'm sure they're setting up a scene now where they can talk to people, and you can also imagine that they probably had to put some type of evacuation, mandate in this area for the people who live close to these homes. But the good thing is they are sort of like spread apart, as we watch this live picture here of this paramedic being lowered down to check on that body there.
And we want to be careful to not show you, the body if it is a person who has passed. But just a hard job showing how difficult it is. That medic will be going down there, and
not just how difficult, but how dangerous it is. We still don't know if that is indeed the suspect, or if the suspect is still inside that home. So it just sort of highlights just how dangerous the job is, and even to just be hovering that low and that close to these flames here.
And the medic is on the ground walking over to the reported person who is out there, and probably just wants to check to see if this person is still alive, or what exactly is this person. As far as suspect information, that we don't know. But if this did happen at a fire station, there are cameras, and I'm sure there were other witnesses who were in the area that could let them know what that person looked like, what their age was, how old they were, all those things that to define someone. So it'll be interesting to see what happens from here. But like we said, we're going to be very careful in not showing you that person if that person has passed. But as you can see, DeMarco, not far from where the home is. I mean, obviously that person owns quite a bit of land, but it looks like it's at the front part of their property where that body may be.
And as we continue to take a live look at these pictures here, you hit on it. You hit it on the dot, Chris, there, how the fire has basically stayed put and into one area of this home here as we watch these pictures of those flames and the smoke billowing there. Guys, I'd be curious to find out if Jeff Nguyen has gotten closer or to see if he's having any trouble trying to get into this area, this neighborhood here. And find out what he has for us. But as we continue to wait to hear from Jeff there, we just witnessed a paramedic, a medic being lowered there to try and check on that body that has been found in the yard. And again, it was just reports. We can't confirm whether or not that person is deceased or still alive, but I'm sure that's why they are moving in to try and check. And to even assume that it would be safe, I'm sure they wouldn't even allow that medic to, to fly in and be lowered to the ground if they felt the situation was still dangerous. So that is also something else to pay attention to. And we're also waiting to hear from authorities to give us an update. I know people, when you're watching breaking news, we can only vamp as much as we possibly can with the little information that we do have. But we do have Jeff Nguyen, who is headed in this direction, to give us a full report. And we're also waiting to learn more about the authorities and what they're going to give us. But you're talking about two major crime scenes now. This home here where the suspect is, and also the fire station 81 there, just along the Sierra Highway, which are now connected. Whether or not they were connected in the beginning, they are now connected as the end result of what has happened.
Yeah, for sure. And, the fire continues to burn. And, as I mentioned before, DeMarco, it continues to stay at that one part of the home. So it makes you wonder if that fire is just going to stay right there. But the smoke is not as thick, not as black as it was even maybe, 10, 15 minutes ago. But crews, they are staying away from that home right now, and so they try to figure out more information as to, what exactly they're looking for. Is it one person? Is it two people? That, we still don't know. But, we also know at least one person was shot at that fire station, and, there could potentially be a second one that we're still waiting to hear on. Obviously, authorities are more concerned and, figuring out who this shooter was and, getting this person into custody. And, that we're still waiting for as well. But this is a very remote area, about 45 minutes north of Los Angeles and the high desert, and the two crime scenes about 15 minutes apart. So that person who fired those shots potentially, went into that fire station and, sped off to their home in Acton. And that's when the reports of the fire were called out. And that's when we learned that the suspect was potentially inside that home. But we're also trying to figure out, the actual address of this home and, to learn a little bit more who owns this home and see if we can get a hold of them. And, I'm sure that's something that authorities are trying to do as well, just to try to get anything that they can. Is this a family that lives here? Obviously, this is a large home for just one person, but that could be a possibility as well. But definitely an isolated area. And, this whole, there are homes in this neighborhood, but they're pretty spread out. And as you could see from the right-hand side, it seems like people all have a lot of property. And
Jeff Nguyen should be less than 5 minutes away now. That's where I'm hearing from the producers, and we're going to get him up as quickly as we can so we can give you a ground view of what's going on there. And hopefully he has been able to get in contact with some of his sources as well. But I'm looking at a tweet here from Placentia Fire and Life Safety Department. And it says Placentia Fire and Life Safety are saddened by the tragic shooting that occurred at Los Angeles County Fire Station 81. There, our thoughts and prayers go out to the Los Angeles County Fire Department family, friends of all people involved in this incident. So the fact that another fire department is tweeting that they are saddened by a tragic shooting is, if at all confirming, even though we haven't confirmed it with authorities yet, that whoever was shot at Fire Station 81 may have succumbed, may have died from their injuries there. But they're saying our thoughts and prayers go out to the Los Angeles County Fire Department family and friends of all the people involved in this incident.
Yeah, and DeMarco, we're also learning a little bit more information. As I was mentioning, if you get the address of the home, you can find out who lives there. So according to property records, we're learning that a person who owns this home either currently works at LA County Fire or they formerly worked with LA County Fire, which kind of pieces things together a little bit better because that shooting happened at Fire Station 81. And DeMarco, we actually have a phoner going on. Johnny Turner, he's a retired San Bernardino SWAT officer. Johnny, thank you so much for joining us. You're here live on KCAL 9 News at noon. Have you been watching what's been taking place out in Acton and in the Agua Dulce area?
You know, I'm just now catching up on it. And right now, I can see that the residence is on fire. So, as I understood, we had a firefighter that was shot at his station.
Johnny, can you tell us the process? Clearly, we're watching, and our viewers are watching this home here just go up in flames. Can you talk about the safety and why firefighters are not rushing in to put the fire out here?
Well, the problem is that's a pretty nice sized estate, and just because that particular section is on fire doesn't mean the suspect doesn't have access to the rest of the home. So it wouldn't be safe. We would never let them go in for that.
And the possibility that, and this is information that I'm clear or pretty sure that you probably can't elaborate on, but the possibility that we're hearing that this person, the person whoever owns this home, may have some type of relationship with this fire station, may have once been a firefighter or may have known someone, or somebody may have lived in this home. Does it frighten you to know that we are now looking at this situation here where it could be very tragic, where clearly things have turned tragic? We just haven't been able to confirm that information. But does it frighten you that something like this could happen at a fire station?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, in today's world, we have a lot of folks who, sometimes find themselves in trouble, or it's some type of disciplinary action, and not knowing how long that process took, what it was for. That would probably help us a little bit in terms of understanding that person's mentality about it. Firefighter is a great job, just like in law enforcement. Not the type of job that you certainly want to lose. It's
most certainly a dangerous job as well, because sometimes firefighters arrive on the scene before officers get there in a troubling scene there. And what do you make of this tweet here by the Placentia Fire and Life Safety Department saying that they're sending their thoughts and prayers out to the Los Angeles County Fire Department family, friends of all people, as a result of this tragic shooting?
No, it's tragic, and you don't see anybody lose their life, and in particular over a job. It doesn't matter how you end up, possibly losing that job, or if this is the case, this person is a former firefighter, to go to the station and take that out on someone that doesn't have anything to do with that process. There's no understanding of that.
Yeah, and Johnny, one of the questions that I have, obviously this fire continues to burn, and they want to be cautious as to make sure that no one else is inside the home. We saw a medic go down to where there were reports of a body, potentially a self-inflicted gunshot wound. How long is the SWAT team going to wait outside? Are they just going to let the fire continue to burn? Or is there a lot of questions as to, are there more than one person that's involved? Where do they go from here? Well,
in terms of making an entry, a lot of it is going to depend on whether or not it's an exigent circumstance. So would there be someone else inside that needs to be rescued? That at this particular point, that would be something that we would have to look at, whether or not you're going to make entry into a residence. Like I said, it's a pretty big sized house, and certainly we're not going to send a firefighter up there to deal with that type of an issue by themselves. We do have, on most teams now, for quite some time, we have tactical paramedics who are trained and who actually carry firearms and take SWAT training like the rest of us. But again, they do that. We still protect them, and then we get them to a place to where if you need to triage someone inside the house, then they have the ability to protect themselves.
Jenna, let's talk about the safety of fire stations. Clearly they are places that are some of the most friendly spots that I could even think of. You drive by them all, just about every day. You see firefighters sitting out when they're not working. Talk about the safety, because you can literally walk up to them. I can't tell you how many stories I've been on across the country where when I had to use a restroom, that was one of the first places that I would stop as a fire station, because they're so kind and so nice and you could just walk up to them. Can you talk about the security?
Well, you know, and they should be that way. I mean, they should be open and welcoming, because there's a lot of, you know, there are times when you're going to have a citizen that's going to have an issue, whether it be a health issue or something else, where they're going to show up, just go directly. It may be faster for them to go to a fire station for assistance than possibly, you know, going to a hospital or someplace else for treatment and help. So, yeah, you always want that from your fire department. You always want them to be open and available to the public. And much like law enforcement, same thing in the police office. Although, you know, as the years have progressed, we've had to, you know, take other precautions to make sure that we protect our front desk personnel. And so there's only, you know, we have to control certain types of access that you still should be able to approach a public service.
But it's clear, it is clear, and I just want to make this point, it is clear that these firefighters, whether or not this is someone who used to work at the fire station or may have been a former firefighter or a current firefighter, it is clear that this station could have been caught off guard.
Yeah, well, I mean, and again, this person that's involved in this process that we're presuming, did he or she actually work at that particular station? Was that the station where this where there was a disciplinary process that started? I mean, you know, it starts there, but then obviously, like everything else, when it becomes a full-blown process, if it's disciplinary issues or something like that, then it's going to go to a different building. It's going to generally go to more the corporate side of.
Hey, Johnny, just 1 second. We want you to stay on the line, but Jeff Nguyen, our reporter Jeff Nguyen, just made it to the scene. We want to remind you, you're watching KCAL 9 News at noon. Chris Holmstrom here with Jamarco Morgan. Jeff Nguyen joins us now live from the scene. Jeff, where are you at? What can you see? What can you tell us about what's going on? There you are.
So, Chris and DeMarco, we are basically down the hill from the home. Let me step aside because you can see a lot of armored vehicles here. SWAT has arrived. You can see a number of Sheriff's Department personnel on this street right now, which leads up to the home. You can see some of the armored vehicles right there behind us. I'm going to ask Joelle Fallon to basically pan and tilt a little bit so you can see some of the smoke that's rising right now. That is where the fire has been burning as you've been covering this for the better part of an hour or so right now. One of the good things to report is the posture of the LA County Sheriff's Department right now. You can see one of either a detective or lieutenant who's not in full gear in a suit and tie taking off his vest right there. So the posture is certainly very relaxed right now. We're waiting to get some information from a supervisor, so hopefully someone will talk to us. But right now, basically, everyone is kind of blowing right by us and not really providing us with any sort of information as of yet. But certainly much more relaxed right now. Hey, Joel, walk with me. We're just going to jump in and try to join this information.
There's somebody on scene there?
I haven't been up there myself. I don't have any other information other than that. We're looking at this time, and no further details until the investigation is completed.
Is this a threat to law enforcement right now? We know that is a delicate situation in terms of response.
Well, there's always a threat to law enforcement, but at this time we don't consider it a dire threat at this moment. But
Lieutenant, actually, thanks for being so gracious. Okay. So certainly the detective is walking away without his vest on. He says certainly not a threat right now to law enforcement. Certainly good news. You can see some of the SWAT members and some of the deputies out here walking down the hill as this fire continues to burn. So everybody is staying certainly very tight-lipped at this point, but you can see some of the SWAT members members here. They are on scene, and some of the patrol cars are looking like they are starting to work their way out of here, guys. Let me hand it back to you in case you have any sort of a question so we can kind of reboot this a little bit.
Hey, Jeff, real quick, you're doing a phenomenal job, by the way. We've been watching this home just burn to the ground, a specific area, but the fire is growing there. Have you been able to spot any engines nearby? We haven't seen any fire trucks. I know they're probably keeping them back for safety reasons, but on your way there, did you see any engines like at the ready?
Yeah, fantastic question, my man. So, no, to answer your question pointedly, no, we have not. This home is basically off the 14, about 3 miles, 4 miles off the Crown Valley exit, and it's basically pretty rural out here, but we have not been able to see any fire engines out here. You know, one of the reasons is because, hey, Joel, do me a favor, why don't you just point out one of the trees right now? The air is very still, not a lot of wind blowing through here, and typically in a situation like this with law enforcement, you know, time is certainly on their side, and so they don't need to really go rushing in there, especially with not a whole lot of threat to the neighboring community. That was what we were able to surmise a little bit from the detective, and that's why you can see a number of them leaving out here. But no, because typically, you know, in Southern California, we are basically told to keep the roads clear for fire engines, and at this point, we have not seen any fire engines. The Sheriff's Department is asking us to back up a little bit. They're putting up yellow tape, so Joel is going to back up while I keep on talking here. You can see some of the other news media that's showing up right now, but certainly a large crime scene to process, in addition to at least one more crime scene, which is the fire station. And thanks for indulging us as we're walking down the hill and work with the Sheriff's Department while they're conducting this investigation. But there again, Joel is showing you some of the smoke that is rising from that property. It certainly has petered quite a bit in the last 10-15 minutes or so. We were able to see it on the 14 as we were driving up here. At one point, the column of smoke much thicker, much darker, and now it's kind of dying down a little bit. And as I say that, we can see some more dark smoke rising. As you can imagine, you know, that property looked like a newer property. Most of it was concrete, but you know, in modern housing, a lot of it sometimes is you've got plastics and whatnot in there to burn away. And so when that does happen, you can see some of the color changes or the darkness of the smoke when you have petroleum-based material inside the home, such as
Yeah, Jeff, you know, we're taking a live look right now at Sky 9, watching this fire continue to burn. It definitely it looks like the fire is not burning as much as it was before, and it is staying to that area. It could likely spread a little bit more. I mean, definitely a lot to burn in that area. But, you know, when you take a wide shot of Sky 9, you see this area. It's a pretty remote neighborhood, but there are several neighbors and homes in that area. Jeff, have you seen any of the neighbors, or have you talked to any of the neighbors about, you know, what's going on or who may live inside that home?
Yeah, Chris, you know, it's mostly like little ranch houses around here. Some folks have horses, like the property to my right there. Joel is going to show you some of the horses that are in that corral right there. And that
Can
house
we get a split
is
screen of that
probably
so we
a
can see
stone's
your
throw
live
away.
shot?
Say that again.
I think he's talking to the director just to get a split screen so we can see exactly what you're talking about. They're working on
showing, yeah, okay.
Oh, thanks
there
for
we go.
helping me
Okay,
out.
we
Yeah,
can see you now, Jeff.
you know, if they can put up our image. So, Joel, the newsroom was not able to see our shot. I'm going to ask you to pan back over to where the horses are. There's at least one horse, a couple of donkeys in that corral right there. There was a woman who was at that property when we showed up. However, she was very camera shy, so she did not want to speak to us. And as we are looking at her property right now, some of the smoke is rising in the air and is certainly getting thick again. I think the word that I was searching for earlier was insulation, right? Because typically that's kind of petroleum based, and sometimes insulation burns very quickly and very with a lot of heat, and that's why you're seeing some of the black smoke that's rising from that property, some of the smoke that's rising above those trees right there. So certainly a very rural neighborhood. The street right in front of us is paved. However, when you look around some of the properties out here, there are a lot of dirt roads out here. So, it sometimes requires ATVs and whatnot to get around here. Hey, Joel, while we're doing this, if you guys can be patient with us, I'm going to walk over and see if this neighbor will talk to me as he's standing out here. So, if you can be patient, certainly live TV, sometimes people don't want to talk to us, and I'm just going to try my best to see if he'll share some thought. Sir, sorry to bug you. I'm a reporter with CBS. Would you mind sharing your thoughts with us? We're on live TV right now. What time did the fire start burning?
Oh, about an hour ago, I heard helicopters very close overhead, and around here, you hear that, something's up. Came outside, saw the smoke. That house is about 3 or 4 doors away from mine, and didn't see any fire engines, so I knew something was different. More and more police started showing up, and then I ran inside, turned on the news, and heard that a firefighter had been shot and killed in Agua Dulce. And then this, apparently, they believe is the suspect's house, and they're just waiting to see, when they can go in there. They said they saw a body in the backyard, and that's about where it's at.
Thanks for being so gracious to talk to me. While we do this, I'm going to ask Joel Fallon to kind of swing around this way and get behind you so that we can have the fire in your background.
I'm the next cameraman. I got it.
While we talk. So as the fire is burning over you, let's be very clear. Let's not speculate. We don't know who's involved at this point. But let me ask you this question. Don't give me any names or anything like that because we don't want to speculate. But do you know who lives up in that property?
I believe I do. I'm not sure. I haven't been able to get close enough to see exactly which house it is.
Gotcha. And, this neighborhood, is it a tight-knit neighborhood, or it looks like a bunch of...
Very quiet neighborhood. Rarely see cars, let alone police and fire and helicopters. I've lived here 23 years and never seen anything like this.
Yeah, they're basically like little ranch houses. Right.
Ranchettes, they call them. Everybody's got horses and pickup trucks, and if 3 cars go by, we call that traffic.
Earlier, I saw some of the detectives leaving, some of the deputies leaving. Their posture seemed pretty relaxed. One of the detectives took off his bulletproof vest. Certainly for me, that helped me to relax a little bit. Did you see some of that, or your reaction to kind of some of the movement that's been going on?
Yeah, some of them have been starting to walk away in a much more relaxed mood. When they first came, they were rushing up, and it doesn't seem that there's much they can be doing. Right now, I was handing out waters to them. It's pretty hot out here.
You mentioned you haven't seen a fire engine up here yet. Neither have I. Our chopper has been over the scene. We haven't seen a fire engine. As someone who lives here, does that concern you, or what's your feeling about that at this point?
Well, I know when they need to come in, they will. We've had to evacuate here 2 or 3 times in the past because of wildfires. There was a house almost where that is a few years ago in a big fire, and a DC-10 put the fire out 3 doors away from my house, and when they have to come in, they will. But they're going to make sure it's 100% safe to go in.
And as you're saying that, they're doing a water drop right now, and so your impression of the sort of aerial coordination that's happening in front of your eyes at this point?
Well, it's amazing because they're always out here so fast when there's any hint of a fire. And structure fire, that can move so quickly if the winds pick up here at all. Fires have gone through here so fast in the past. It's crazy.
Again, we don't want to speculate, but I think we can, as human beings, talk about the tragedy that transpired for all of this. I know that for folks who live in this area, the fire department, it's not just civil servants, but they're a lot of times your neighbors as well. And to hear that there is a possible loss of life, how's that affecting you as someone who has relied on them time and time and time again up here?
Well, it's sad. They help us out so much. A few years ago, when there was a big fire here, 3 or 4 firefighters died in the fire, and I put out a big sign saying "Rest in peace," and the whole neighborhood came out. Whenever we see them go by, we're just proud of them. They risked their lives for us, and there's nothing we could do to thank them enough.
Well, thank you for being so gracious for giving us your time as we talk about.
Water left to split.
Well, why don't we save it for the firefighters or the deputies? We've got some in the news van. Thanks for being so gracious to talk to me.
Jeff,
certainly
before
just
he
one
goes,
perspective.
Hey, Jeff, before he goes, can you ask him if he can confirm whether or not a firefighter lives in that neighborhood?
That's a fair question. Again, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We don't want to name any names. But in terms of who lives there, you think you might know who lives there. Do you know if it's a firefighter or someone who works in a different capacity in life?
I don't believe they are a firefighter. I can't say 100% sure. And like you said, I'm not going to speculate as to who it might be. It's up to the police. That's their job.
Thank you for doing that. I really appreciate it. Great question, DeMarco. So, there you have it. And all of us here, as I'm standing here, I'm going to step aside and before I leave you, show you one more look of the heavy smoke that's rising in the air out here. Guys.
All right, Jeff, great job at showing us that scene and, talking to that neighbor to give us some insight as to what this neighborhood's about. And the reason why we asked that question is because property records show that the person who actually owns that home is either a current or former worker of LA County Fire. That is where that shooting first started. And we just want to remind you, you're watching KCAL 9 News at noon. Chris Holmstrom here alongside DeMarco. And, to give you kind of some insight, if you're just tuning in right now, this fire started after a shooting that occurred in Agua Dulce. That shooting was around 10:54 this morning. We know one person was shot and airlifted and taken to the hospital. And then there were reports of an active shooter. Well, from there, LA County got a call about this home being on fire, and then they believe that's where that suspect possibly was. We just heard from Jeff Nguyen after talking to that detective, basically saying that that home right now is not a dire threat to law enforcement. So it makes you wonder if that person, that body that was found outside of the home, was the actual suspect. It potentially could have been a self-inflicted gunshot wound. We're also learning that LA County Fire, they've been letting this fire burn, but soon they will start doing water drops inside this home. Apparently there's reports of potential propane tanks that could further ignite this fire worse than it is right now. And as you can see, DeMarco, that smoke is getting thicker, it is getting blacker, so definitely some flammable material that is being burned here right now.
And those water drops would be extremely important, especially with our weather conditions, to make sure that this fire has no chance of spreading there. Yeah. Johnny is still on the phone. Johnny, you with us?
Yeah, I'm still here.
All right, Johnny. So even looking at the size of this home, I'm sure, I don't want to speculate about how much firefighters, make or whatever, but this looks like a huge home here.
It really is. That's a pretty nice-sized structure. And, for the same purposes, I wouldn't want to speculate in terms of where that person is in terms of their career.
What does it say about the fire being contained to this area? Of course, we've seen it spread, but it's pretty much stayed consistent in this area here, off to the back, sort of the side of the home.
Well, even if you're looking at the trees there, you can tell that there's not much wind going on up there. And when you have open areas like that, that's I think pretty much the homeowner said it best, is that's when your concerns are, because once those winds start to pick up, things can leap and jump, and next thing you know, you got a much bigger problem. But it's in a pretty nice sized open space area, so I can see where that kind of takes a little bit of the heavy concern. But then we just recently saw a water drop also.
And Johnny, do you know this area here and the proximity of Fire Station 81 in this home here?
Unfortunately, I do not. Primarily, I live near the beach, but I was working out of San Bernardino City.
Yeah, Johnny, and we learned that they deployed, LASD deployed SWAT personnel to this home in Acton, and during Jeff Nguyen's live shot, we heard one of the detectives talk about how It's currently not a dire threat to law enforcement. They took off their vest. What does that say to you when you hear a detective say this scene is no longer a dire threat to them?
If you can get anything positive out of bad things, the fact that there's a good potential that the person who was responsible may have been that person that's down. The other, more even equally as important, is there's the opportunities of anybody else being inside the house are next to nothing. So that's a good thing, because we don't want, like I said, when you look at it in exigent circumstances, if there's somebody inside, then you're going to have to risk, and you're going to have to go in and if there's a hostage situation or something like that. But if there's no possibilities of anything like that, then you can just let that burn itself until it gets to a point where the airdrops and some of the other things are going to be effective to keep it contained in that location. So that's a good thing. A lot of times folks forget, just because someone sets a fire, that's automatically the end of a situation. With a structure that large, that could be a diversionary tactic to try to force law enforcement's hand or the fire department's hand to immediately come inside or try to do something rescue related, and that person would have the ability to get a jump on law enforcement or the firefighters. So that's always one of the things that you have to be concerned about too.
And Johnny, before we continue, I want to let our viewers know here on KCAL 9 News that we are expecting to hear from authorities around 12:45. That's in about, 7 minutes, 7 to 8 minutes to get the latest on the situation and get an update. Hopefully we can learn more about what's going on and where they stand with this investigation. Again, for our viewers who are just now joining us, we are hearing of at least 2 fatalities, one being one of the victims and one possibly the suspect, even though we can't confirm either of the 2, but hearing that at least 2 people may be deceased now as a result of the situation that happened a little over an hour and a half ago, where someone was shot at a fire station. Someone opened fire at a fire station, and then the suspect is believed to have moved to this home here off the Sierra Highway and barricaded himself inside that house, set it afire at some point, even telling people who were approaching the home, not sure if it was law enforcement or neighbors, but telling people at one point to back away, threatening to shoot them if they didn't do so. And then we also got reports that there was a body that has been located. At first it was said to be in the front yard of the home. It's a huge property, so you don't know what the front, the back, the side, whatever, but there was indeed a body reportedly found located on the home and may have been injured or dead, deceased as a result of a self-inflicted wound. Then they, I don't know if we call it flight for life here in LA County, but the chopper moved in, lowered a medic to try and check on that victim there, or that person who is reportedly deceased, and not sure what the latest is on that information. But again, this information is changing. It happens that way with breaking news. Things change by the second, but we hope to get some concrete information for our viewers at 12:45. So just hang tight with us as we continue to talk to Johnny here. And again, Johnny, I can't help. I asked you about it earlier, just the safety. I think about the safety of our fire stations, not just here in this area, but also across, the country, across the county, across Southern California. This has to hit home to firefighters who are watching and learning about the situation right now.
I'm sure it does, and I'm pretty sure they've that they watch out for these types of things, and they have some concerns. But if this tends to be working out the way that we're thinking, or the way we're but really it seems I don't believe they would ever.
And I say that because you think about soft targets. There was a time when you would never imagine that a church, would be involved in an active shooting situation. A kindergarten class. We can't say that anymore. But a fire station is also still considered a soft target.
It would be. You're absolutely correct. And again, it's putting all of us in a very difficult position, as things tend to change throughout the country in terms of exactly how far do you need to harden certain locations and certain types? Like I said, police department, it's rather obvious, but you don't really see this type of situation generally with the fire department. Much like a hospital, it's tends to be that one place where you feel pretty safe. I mean, we have people bringing babies and all these. There's so many different things that they're involved in terms of assisting the public. That the last thing that you would want to see is the fire department have to get to a situation where you have to lock it down and really control, more than, or set it up to where you're talking about bulletproof glass or any of these other different things, which a lot of folks, that can be kind of a turnoff when you start going to certain places, and you can only imagine going into a hospital and seeing the receptionist behind glass or a protective measure. So it's a tough thing to have to see or deal with.
And if you're watching right now, we've got two live shots, one from the ground, one from Sky 9. You could see they just did an airdrop right there, which was a pretty good one, trying to put this fire out. And Johnny, we talked about that other person that was shot at Fire Station 81. About 50 minutes ago, LA County Fire, they sent a tweet basically talking a little bit about that shooting. They said, it is with a heavy heart that the LA County Fire Department confirms that a tragic shooting occurred at approximately 10:55 a.m. today at Fire Station 81 in Agua Dulce. That's about 15 minutes away from this live shot, which we're looking at right now in Acton. And if you're not familiar with this area, both of those cities are about 45 minutes north of Los Angeles. And the tweet went on to say that the department is still in the process of gathering additional information, and they are cooperating with law enforcement throughout this ongoing incident. So, Johnny, as we see right here, obviously they're trying to put out this fire to make sure the fire is out. What is the next step for SWAT and for law enforcement once that fire is put out?
Well, you're still going to have to make entry, and you're going to have to check and just to ensure that that there was nothing else or no one else that was left behind. I mean, that would be an extremely unfortunate circumstance, but that's still part of the process. So there would be a check of the residents to ensure that no one was left behind before we let any investigators or anyone else go in and then start their process.
All right, Johnny, we're counting down to this press conference here where we expect to learn much more about this situation. Any final thoughts in 30 seconds before we have to break away from you?
It's just it's very disheartening to find out that something like this is affecting the emergency services. I mean, you just look at we're just going through Memorial Day weekend, and it's vital to have people who are willing to step forward in the worst of circumstances to help those and to save others. And certainly the fire department we're right at the tip of the spear when it comes to this, and for them to suffer this type of tragedy, like I said, no less than a day after Memorial Day, just kind of shows you just how vulnerable we can be.
All right, thank you very much, Johnny. I want to welcome our viewers to a special report on both CBS 2 News and KCAL 9 News right now. We are following a developing story here where at least one person has been shot at a fire station number 81, and another person has been reportedly injured as a self-inflicted wound there and is believed to be dead. At least we're hearing that at least two people may be dead in this situation. A shooting that happened around 10:55 early this morning. Our Jeff Nguyen is live near the Sierra Highway here in this area. And Jeff, if you could tell us what's the latest and what have you learned so far? I know you spoke with neighbors as we're watching this home here burn to the ground.
Hey, DeMarco and Chris, thanks for coming to us. I'm joined by Carol and Brian Dalrymple. Carol, do me a favor, because we've been trying to figure out who lives in that home without naming any names, without getting ahead of ourselves. Can you tell us a little bit of the history of that house and who lives there?
Okay. Yes, it has had several owners, and it was on the market within the last 2 years. So we're not sure who lives there now or owns it or even rents it out, but it has had several owners. It was originally a designer home and was featured in a magazine article, a designer magazine.
Yeah, from the air, it looks like a very modern sort of house, a lot of concrete, certainly very modern looking. Brian, talk to me about what has transpired here, because you live so close to this. Can you kind of paint the picture for me, the sights and sounds that you experienced earlier?
Well, we got a call from a friend of ours that lives in Santa Clarita that told us what was going on, which was really foreign to us. But then we went out the front door and we saw all the smoke coming from the building. So that's pretty much all we know.
What's it been like for you to not see fire engines go up this road? I haven't seen any as we were driving in here. I was watching our chopper feed, and since being here, I haven't seen any fire engines. Are you alarmed by that, or?
I was kind of concerned because we've had fires over here before along the ridge. And so to see smoke and no fire engines kind of bothered me until I found out the whole story as much as I could.
What about you, Carol?
We're kind of used to this. We've had to evacuate 3 times in the past. So, but there hasn't been any fire engines. So yes, it was concerning to me too.
I think what has provided a little bit of comfort for some of us, I talked to Michael May across the street from you, really nice gentleman, and he said that, he feels a lot better knowing that some of the deputies are leaving the scene. We saw deputies or detectives taking off their bulletproof vests. I mean, because you were up the road a little bit earlier, you had a better vantage point than we did. Your feelings about some of their posture at this point and what you witnessed?
Oh, I love the men in blue, and my son-in-law is a sheriff. I support them 1,000%, and I thank them for their, protection of our community. Yeah.
Does it make you feel better to know that they're not scrambling and some of them are kind of pulling back a little bit?
Oh, they're always in control. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, they had an armored vehicle out here, and they were carrying their weapons when we first saw them, but we feel a lot better that they put them away.
Let's circle back to our first question again. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's not do any sort of speculation and whatnot. But for the folks who live in this community, do you guys know each other well? And did you ever interact with who you identified as the new person at that property?
No. We mostly interact with our immediate neighbors here. We are pretty far away from our neighbors, so just our immediate neighbors are the ones we usually interact with.
Hey, Brian, since the Sheriff's Department is kind of preserving the crime scene and not allowing us to go beyond the yellow tape, you were able to walk up a little bit because you live here. What's the hike like up to that property? Because I think it's the property at the top of the hill, correct?
Well, it's a gradual slope, but we weren't allowed to go up the driveway or anything like that. But if you go far enough over, you can see the house in flames,
Carol?
Yes, we're at 2,800 feet, almost 2,900 feet, so I'm assuming that's close to 3,000.
Gotcha. And on a normal day when you don't have this sort of situation, what's it like to walk up there? Is it a pretty steep grade or?
Oh, yes, it's a steep grade, yes. Mm-hmm.
So they're just kind of up there by themselves, more or less?
It is isolated, yes.
Speaking of isolation, do most of the folks around here interact with one another, or do you kind of stay in your little ranch homes, more or less?
We do our own thing.
Well, some of our immediate neighbors have been here a while, but most all the neighbors have sold out, and we have new neighbors so we have brand new neighbors next door. So we're interacting with them a little bit, but.
Well, I want to thank you folks so much for being patient with me. I know it's really hot out here, and for you to kind of stand by and wait for them to come to us so that we can talk to you. Certainly very gracious of you both, and you certainly provided a lot of context and insight on what's happening in this neighborhood. So again, thank you so much. Certainly indebted to you. Thank you, folks. So as if I may, let me just kind of reiterate what Brian and Carol shared with us. The property that's burning right now had been up for sale. And at this point, they are saying the person who was living there, they don't know if that person is a new owner or someone who rented that property. But for folks who have lived here for about 20 years or so, a lot of the homes around here have changed hands quite a bit. because of the situation, because the Sheriff's Department is preserving the crime scene during this phase of the investigation. They have basically roped off the road that leads up to the house. And so Brian and Carol were saying that it's a very steep grade to get up there, and the property that is burning right now is more or less isolated, sitting at the top of that hill. So as we wait here, we can, Joel, walk out with me a little bit behind this tree, and we don't notice as much smoke burning until we come around the tree. And certainly, yes, a lot of thick, heavy smoke burning right now with the SIB chopper above. So that's the latest from here. Let's go ahead and kick it back to you guys.
And Jeff, stay with us. Just learning about that home and the fact that it may have been in a designer magazine was very interesting. Jeff is in Acton there. That's where the home is. The fire station 81 in is Agua Dulce there, just off of Sierra Highway, for those of us who are just now joining us. Apparently someone was shot there, believed to be a firefighter, but we're waiting to get that information confirmed from Trina Schrader, who we expect to hear from at any moment now. We were expected to get a briefing around 12:45, so want to keep our viewers with us, also those who are joining us on our CBS LA app there. Again, the home that you see there, which is on fire, is in Acton. The fire station 81 is located in Agua Dulce. That's off of Sierra Highway. So 2 active crime scenes here, Chris.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things I noticed during Jeff's live shot is, you know, that fire continues to burn, and that smoke is getting thicker. It is getting darker. Obviously, a lot of flammable material that's burning in there. And, you know, what's interesting in the beginning, you know, we've been on this live shot for quite a while. In the beginning, fire crews were kind of staying back. You know, they were not dropping any water or fighting the fire from the ground. But we've noticed that within probably the past 20 or 30 minutes, LA County Fire has been conducting airdrops of the fire, trying to put it out. But DeMarco, that fire is still burning pretty strong. Thankfully, there's not a lot of homes in this area. Other good news for people who live in this community. Jeff Nguyen did speak with the detective who was on scene. He didn't really say much about what was going on, but he did mention that there was not a dire threat to law enforcement, which makes you believe that the person that, you know, was wanted for this active shooting at that fire station in Agua Dulce may have taken his own life. We're still waiting to confirm that. And as DeMarco has been saying, Trina Schrader is with the LA County Sheriff's Department. She will have more information. Obviously, there's still details that she probably will not be able to release, but there's a lot of questions. You know, the big question that you asked, DeMarco, from the beginning was motive. What was the motive? What was the reason that this person in Acton, whoever this person is, drove 15 minutes away to Agua Dulce, to the fire station, and opened fire? You know, that's something that we may not never know, but definitely a tragic situation nonetheless.
That is a horrible situation, and you see that home is still burning even after the water drops to the area in Acton. But you also think about the soft targets. We were talking to Johnny a little earlier for our viewers who are just now joining us. When you think of fire stations, even growing up, even as an adult, and I told you how when I would, you know, travel around the country and file reports for CBS Evening News or CBS This Morning, we would be in places where, you know, we'd have to find a place to use a restroom. And the one thing that we would do is Google a fire station, because they're so kind, they're so nice, their doors are always open. They're always sitting outside if they're sitting on their engine truck. So you can only imagine how, you know, they were possibly thrown off guard. I think it is safe to say that anybody's thrown off guard, whether you know there's any tension with the situation, whether it's a former coworker, whatever the case may be. They were thrown off guard with the situation here that happened there at the station this morning. As we take a look at these choppers here, at one point they left the medic, they lowered a medic there, hoisted a medic down to the ground to try and check and see if that suspect, who we possibly believe is a suspect, the person who was found in the yard, was either conscious, still conscious, or may have indeed died as a result of the self-inflicted wounds. But let's catch our viewers up so we can figure out how this all started, as of what we know. 10:55, there was a shooting. Reports of an active shooter at this fire station near Fire Station 81 in Agua Dulce. That's about 10 miles, 15-minute drive there on Sierra Highway from where we're looking at right now. At some point, the suspect is believed to have made his way, his or her way, to Acton there. And was holed up inside this house, barricaded themselves inside this home here, set it afire. We're not sure if it was neighbors who was trying to approach this home or if it was law enforcement. But at some point, the suspect said, "Hey, don't take any more steps. I will shoot you," etc. For lack of a better word. We don't know the exact wording as we look at this ambulance here that is headed to that location there. But apparently told the people who was walking toward that home, "Don't take any more steps. I will shoot you." Then minutes later, we get reports that there's a body that has been located in the backyard of this home here, and it may have been, a dead body as a result of a self-inflicted wound there. And we're hearing that it is believed that that may be the suspect. We're still waiting to hear from Trina Schrader with the LA County Police Public Information Officer there with the LA County Fire Department to give us the latest on the situation. So it's a lot to talk about, but there was a shooting at a fire station. Suspect goes to this home here, and all of a sudden the house is set ablaze, and then we find a body.
Yeah.
Law enforcement located a body there.
Just a developing story for sure. And keep in mind, this is just one of two scenes that we are covering right now. We have a crew that is heading to the fire station as well to see if they can learn any information about what may have happened there. Again, we should hear from the LA County Sheriff's Department momentarily, who hopefully they can give us a little bit more information as to what happened. And we saw that ambulance and we saw that fire truck cruising down the road. I haven't seen
first time that we've seen a fire truck, yeah.
And it makes you wonder if that person, that medic that went down to see that person, if that person was still alive, or if they needed to to have any kind of work to try to save that person's life. That we still don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely we know they are actively trying to put out this fire. They've got to be careful. We've already seen at least one water drop so far on this home. And
you thought it would have been a really good one.
It appeared to be good.
It's still burning. So, I mean, that just goes to show the type of material, one, that the home was built with, but also what may be inside that house. The reason why it's still burning here. And just learning from some of the people, some of the neighbors that Jeff Nguyen just spoke with, and they were talking about how this home may have been featured in a designer magazine and saying that it was possibly up for sale. So it may have been vacant at the time, who knows, but we have had reports that the home belongs to or could possibly belong to either a firefighter or a current LA County firefighter there. So we're still trying to confirm that information as our desk is working desperately hard to get this situation.
And you just hope that there was no one else inside that home.
Yeah, that's the hope. That is the hope.
We at this point we really don't know. And if there was just one person living in this home, that's a pretty big home to live by yourself at.
That's a massive home there. And folks, again, if you're just now joining us or you've been tuning in, there was a shooting at a fire station there, Fire Station 81 in Agua Dulce there, off of Sierra Highway. That's about 10 miles away, 15 minutes from Acton, where you see these live pictures of this home that's burning. It's believed that at least 2 people may be dead. Again, we're waiting for full confirmation, but that person, one may be a victim, one may be the suspect in this situation. But the shooting happened around 10:55, and then about a couple of minutes later, firefighters and law enforcement were actually called to this area. Firefighters were being held back for safety reasons, but called to this area to try and get the suspect to surrender. Not sure what happened, but we're going to turn it over to KCAL 9 News and send our viewers to regular scheduled programming on CBS 2 News.
All right, we are continuing to follow breaking news right now on KCAL 9 News, also streaming on CBSN Los Angeles. This is an active, developing scene, breaking news in Agua Dulce, Acton area. This is about 45 minutes north of Los Angeles. We know that there was an active shooting at a fire station in Agua Dulce. At least one person taken to the hospital may have passed away from those gunshot wounds. The second crime scene is what we're looking at right now. This is an active fire in Acton. Authorities believe that suspect went to this home, set the house on fire. That person may have taken their life. As for a motive, whether or not there's more than one suspect, that we still don't know. We're still waiting to hear from the LA County Sheriff's Department to learn more about what's going on. Now, we've been covering this, DeMarco, from the beginning. This all happened around 10:54, so a little bit more than 2 hours later, this scene still an active scene for sure. As far as the fire goes, we know crews have been actively putting out this fire. They've been doing water drops trying to put the fire out, and it's looking a little bit better. There definitely was heavy, thick smoke just maybe about 5 minutes ago. Watching this live shot right now, it appears that they're getting a better handle on it. Hopefully another water drop would help that. But there were reports that there may have been propane tanks in that area. So obviously, when you're dealing with fire and propane tanks, that is a very dangerous situation, which is why fire crews are not on the ground and battling this from the air.
And here's why there's concern that a tragedy may have taken place there at the fire station. Aside from hearing reports on Twitter that a firefighter was shot and may be dead as a result, you think about the tweet that was sent out by the LA County Fire Department saying, it started off with saying it is with heavy hearts. And then this tweet right here from the Placentia Fire and Life Safety Department, who was saying, that they are saddened by the tragic shooting that happened at Los Angeles County Fire Station 81 in Agua Dulce. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the Los Angeles County Fire Department family, friends of all people involved in this incident. So it most certainly makes you think that the worst has indeed transpired there at that fire station. But again, we are watching this home as it continues to burn. It has been burning now for at least more than an hour, about an hour and 30 minutes. Not sure what transpired before this home was set ablaze here, but the suspect apparently was reportedly telling law enforcement and neighbors, whoever was outside, and were approaching that home to step back, to stay away. This is what we're hearing from people who are on the ground, to stay away, threatening to shoot them if they did not.
Yeah, definitely had to take caution, and we spoke with somebody who worked for Johnny Turner, who was a retired officer with San Bernardino SWAT team, and he kind of gave us some insight as to what people on the floor were dealing with. Obviously, they have to make sure that they're cautious about what's going on before they send their people inside. They need to make sure that more than one person is not inside there as well. But looking at this shot, DeMarco, in the beginning, once we saw this fire, it looked like the fire was staying to one part of the house, but it looks like it's spreading a tiny bit. But it makes you wonder, what exactly it's burning, because that's been a pretty good solid burn. It's been burning
for quite some time now. Yeah. And the fact that it had stayed in one area, now it's clearly it has consumed the entire home just about, but it had stayed in one area specifically for about an hour at least, which shows the firewalls and the material that this home has been built with. Definitely, I could understand if it was a designer home that had been featured in a magazine, because you build it to protect art and items, expensive items that may be inside the home. But not sure if the home was occupied. Jeff was speaking with one of the neighbors there who said that they believe the home was up for sale. And that it was indeed featured in designer magazines or whatnot of that nature.
But yeah, you can see just how desolate this area is. These are ranch-style homes. Each person has quite a bit of property. There's a lot of livestock in that area as well. That one guy mentioned, whenever there's a horse in a truck, that's heavy traffic for them. So obviously people in this neighborhood, they're not used to dealing with, well, most people aren't, but this amount of traffic. You've got fire crews, you've got sheriff's deputies, you've got detectives, you've got the SWAT team as well. And, this is a very fluid situation, and, there's still so many questions, but as you can imagine, law enforcement is very, they're very busy trying to, figure out all the details. And once they are able to get that information, they will share it to the public. But one good news that we did hear from a detective there is saying that law enforcement in that area, likely neighbors as well, they're not in an immediate threat. So that's something good. And Jeff Nguyen, one of our reporters, is there with Joel Fallon, a photographer. They are on the ground right now. Jeff, what do you see? What can you tell us from your vantage point right now?
Yeah, if I may, let me just step aside and show it to you because we can see one of the choppers. There is an alarm, a pulsating sound as it comes down to do that water drop right there. So this is one of the most spectacular water drops that we have seen so far. You can see just how closely the fire or the water dropping helicopter from LA County Fire gets to that property. And as soon as the water was released, you can see some of the smoke turning a little bit lighter in color instead of the thick, dark black that we had seen for a while right now. But that property, as you and DeMarco were mentioning, we were told by a couple that lives down the road from here that it had changed hands a number of times, and recently it was up for sale. They weren't sure as to how recently, whether it was a couple of years or a few months, but what they do know is that the person who had been residing there, or living there I should say, was someone that they did not know. They were not sure if the occupants of that property were renting or the new owner of the property. And as we are looking right now, you can see another helicopter. This one is not from the fire department. What we are seeing hovering over the property right now is one of the rescue helicopters from the sheriff's department, which is painted green and yellow. So I'm guessing what they are doing at this point is they are hovering to kind of keep an eye over the scene. Sometimes what aircraft do is they will designate one as a spotter because when you have hills that are pretty close to properties around here, you kind of want to have someone watching the other aircraft their backs. And so we do not know if there's going to be another water drop or not, but certainly, you know, the ability to kind of stay in one place and hovering right there, they can kind of direct traffic a little bit. And as we are talking about directing traffic, we are seeing another helicopter flying at a higher altitude right now, circling this property, as we can see some of the smoke that is dying down, at least temporarily. As we mentioned earlier, you know, most of this property is concrete, and so the guts of it, we don't know, you know, what sort of insulation is inside that's burning, or whether, you know, there's a lot of furnishings that are made of wood, or furnishings or materials that are made of plastic, but certainly all of it was burning. This property, according to neighbors, is kind of tucked away at the top of a hillside. And so to get up there, if you were to walk, it's quite a steep grade just to get up there. And because of the layout of the properties out here, what we see are basically little ranch homes, kind of sporadically spread out. A lot of the folks out here don't really interact with one another so much. It's not like you can kind of stand on a fence line and talk to your neighbor, because chances are, even when you stand on that fence line, you know, the front door to the next property is quite a ways away. So a lot of folks out here kind of keep to themselves quite a bit. But right now, that sheriff's rescue helicopter is flying and hovering over that property as the smoke is diminishing quite a bit, guys.
And Jeff, I'm not sure if it's a one-way in, one-way out situation, but did you see an ambulance leave that location?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I don't know the exact answer of one way in, one way out, but I can check on that for you. Bear with me one sec. I'm going to interrupt someone real quick. Hey, Michael, sorry for interrupting. Is it one way in, one way out of this?
This way in, and it's dead ends at Aliso Canyon. Well, it's got a different name.
So this is a through street.
Entrance in. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Michael. So there you have it, DeMarco. It's not a one-way in, one-way out. But to your second question, in terms of an ambulance, no, we have not seen an ambulance so far. So if what you guys have been reporting is accurate and that a body has been found on that property, at this point what the Sheriff's Department has to do is basically preserve the scene for the coroner's office because it's up to them to retrieve that body. And so right now it's basically preserving the integrity of the investigation, guys.
And they pretty much had this entire area cordoned off.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, like, you know, Carol and Brian told us, from where we are, it's quite a bit of a hike to get up to that property that basically sits at the top of the hill. So, when you have a crime scene, they are able to kind of seal things off to all of us. Even though we are news organizations representing the interests of the public, we can only get so far so that we don't, basically step on the crime scene, right? So that's kind of the spirit of that law, and that's why they're kind of keeping us back quite a bit.
And Jeff, stay with us real quick. I just want to let our viewers know we were expecting to hear from Trina Schrader. She is the PIO for LA County Fire Department. Apparently, she has had to change course and sort of get this situation under control so we can understand that at the last minute. So we were hoping to bring you an update and hopefully answer a ton of these questions that we have, and I'm sure that you have if you're watching us from home or watching us on our CBS LA app here. But just to recap what has happened, around 10:55 this morning, there are reports and calls of an active shooter at the fire station 81 in Agua Dulce. That's off of Sierra Highway, which is about 10 miles away from where Jeff just filed his report. In the live pictures that you see, that home located in Acton, there were reports of a shooting, reports of at least one firefighter hit. Struck there, and someone had to be airlifted to a local hospital in not far in that area, but as a result of receiving multiple gunshot wounds there. Then you fast forward and you move to this location here in Acton, where it is believed that the suspect was holed up inside this home, had barricaded himself inside this home and set it ablaze. And law enforcement or neighbors were trying to approach the suspect. He immediately started to threaten them and said to step back, get away, or he threatened to shoot. Then shortly after that, we got reports that a person's body was located in the backyard. At first it was the front yard, but now it was the backyard as we look at these investigators who are walking toward that home there, even with it ablaze. But there was a body there that was apparently dead as a result of a self-inflicted a wound there. Not sure if it was a gunshot wound, assuming it had to be quick there. But now you see authorities have been making some movement that we haven't seen, Chris, since we've been up here, but making their way toward this home there.
And the fact that they're making way to the home shows that, obviously they need to be cautious, but they feel comfortable enough going closer to that home to kind of see what they can figure out. But that was a live shot. We'll get that shot back up for you. And DeMarco, as you mentioned, definitely a lot of questions as to, what was the motive for all of this. We do know that there's going to be a 3 o'clock press conference with LA County Sheriff's Department at the fire station. Hopefully they're able to give us more information. But, one of the best things that we got from the day is that the fact that they were saying that, there is no dire threat to law enforcement or that nearby community out there. And, just seeing detectives and, the SWAT team approach that home is a big deal. I mean, this fire has been going on for quite some time, and this will allow the SWAT team to get a little closer to get a better idea of what's going on inside that home, or do they hear are there other people inside that home? We definitely don't know, but this home is definitely continuing to stay on fire, and even with the water drops, it's helped, but definitely a lot of flammable material for sure to go through. But as you mentioned, DeMarco, in the beginning, when this fire first started, it definitely stayed at one part of the house. Now it's spread substantially, that this house, complete loss for sure. And
it still baffles me, and it's somewhat miraculous that this fire is still burning.
Right, yeah.
At this hour. We've seen where it would race through a home and quickly, in a matter of seconds, it's over with and it's done. But it does speak volumes about what was inside this home and the materials that it was possibly built with. That looks like the SWAT team there, and I'm sure just being safe. If they're not, clearly there's no threat, but still being safe and, exercising all precaution to make sure that they are in a decent situation before they move in and try and get the situation under control as well. We've seen the water drops. They did not work. I don't know if that may have helped and just, kept it like in one spot, or if they were dropping the water, I guess, alongside to keep it from spreading, to wet the grass there, the vegetation there. But It is interesting to look at these pictures and still not know, some 2 hours later, what was the motive, what happened,
completely.
As a result, in this fire station just 10 miles, about a 15-minute drive away. Hey, guys, in the control room, do we have someone that will be available at some point at the fire station? I think we all want to get the latest there, even if it's just pictures. Are we working on that? Okay, we are working on that, and we're also hearing again that a press conference has now been moved to 3 p.m. where we will learn more. We were expecting to hear from Trina Schrader. She's the Public Information Officer for LA County Fire Department, and at some point she had to change course. Clearly, you want to also make sure that family members have been notified.
Oh, completely.
It's so much to go through. I think, as the media and people at home, you really want to know. You want to know the answers right away, but there's still a process that has to take place.
Yeah, and looking up, talking a little bit about this home, I'm looking it up online a little bit, and beautiful home, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 3,600 square feet. This lot is a large lot. It's 3.66 acres. And one of the things that the property talks about that we've been talking about a little bit is that, they basically market this home as an award-winning Southwest custom, spectacular views, tree-lined driveway leads to a hilltop masterpiece. And that is what you see on fire right now. That home, a complete loss. Apparently there's 2 master suites in that area as well. There's an art studio, a huge home. And we're also learning, according to property records that we've pulled of this home, the person who owns this home either works for LA County Fire or they formerly worked for LA County Fire. That we're still trying to figure out the details, but interesting nonetheless to hear about that. And just to see this home go up in flames and to see what it looked like before. I mean, it's a bizarre story for sure.
It's very bizarre here. So again, we await to learn more. You can see investigators there combing that area. I'm sure just searching for some type of evidence or anything that they could possibly identify the suspect if they don't know already who this person was.
And it looks like the home just was sold July of last year for $700,000. So new owners, which is what Jeff Nguyen was talking about when he was talking to the neighbors, saying they're not sure who that person is. But it's interesting. I mean, this is a small community, and the 3 people he talked to so far, they don't really know much about this person. But right now, taking a live look from Sky 9, you could see the SWAT team in that area. We definitely saw them get a little bit closer than they have throughout the day. Hopefully, they're able to see inside a little bit more as to what's going on. And probably about an hour ago, we saw a medic respond to that body that DeMarco was talking about in the back of the home. We don't know the condition of that person. We also did see an ambulance race through that neighborhood, but we didn't. Did Jeff say that the ambulance left the neighborhood, or it just?
He did say that there was an ambulance that had left.
They left.
Area,
okay.
But he didn't know for sure why. But we can confirm right now that at least 2 fire personnel at that station, Station 81, were indeed shot, but there is no word yet on their condition. We can confirm that at least 2 fire personnel, not sure if it's both were firefighters, one were firefighter, both worked at the station, we can confirm that, were shot. No word yet on their condition. And Phil, I believe you were saying something else? Phil, was that it?
I think he was saying that we'll learn more at the 3 p.m. presser with the fire chief, who will talk a little bit about, what happened. But I mean, to hear that 2 fire personnel were shot, I mean, it just gives you chills.
And not know their condition.
And not knowing their condition. But we do know that LA County Fire Department did send out a tweet at 11:52 this morning, an hour after the shooting happened, saying, "It is with heavy hearts that LA County Fire confirms that a tragic shooting happened at Fire Station 81. Just heartbreaking to hear, those words, especially, for firefighters who are true heroes, who are out there, and a big part of the community as well. And, hearing that a second person was shot, you got to hope that person is okay. But I mean, hopefully we'll learn more at the 3 p.m. presser.
And I saw it on, Twitter, how they were saying that there were 2 people possibly shot at the fire station. But information like that, you really want to be careful, because just hearing that and knowing that you have a relative that works there, somebody in the neighborhood, you just don't want to, speculate or cause any, trauma, even more trauma for the folks who just don't know. I'm about to retire for the afternoon, so I can be back bright and early tomorrow to give you the latest on this story as well. But Chris Holmstrom will be with you for the next couple of minutes, however long it takes to get the latest on this story. And I believe Jasmine Vale will be joining you as well. But stay with us for the rest of the day and the rest of to get the rest of this story here.
All right, Jamarco, get some rest. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
And so we're continuing to follow Sky 9. This is a live shot that we're looking at right now. This is going on in Acton. We just saw within the last 20, 30 minutes the SWAT team get a little closer to the home, which is the first movement that we've seen since we've been out there monitoring this fire. Obviously, 2 crime scenes that, they got to be very careful for. The other one in Agua Dulce, that one's about 15 minutes away from Acton from this home. And, just heartbreaking to hear, that 2 fire personnel were shot inside that home. And, you just got to hope that, that they're all, coming together and in this, very tragic situation. As we've been mentioning all day, there's still a lot of questions as to what's going on. All we can see is what we see with our live shots and from our ground crews and, what neighbors are saying. But at the same time, the questions are still there. And as I mentioned before, we do have a 3 p.m. press conference that will be going on. That is with LA Fire. We'll likely hear from the fire chief. And we're also trying to hear from LA County Sheriff's Department, but obviously they have a lot going on. They're very busy. But Trina Schreiner, she's likely going to be on the phone with us in just a little bit to talk a little bit about what's going on. But yeah, you can definitely see a very active scene. This fire continues to burn. The smoke, not as thick as it was before, definitely throughout the afternoon, there's been heavy black smoke. And now this home, I mean, there's really not much left of it. When, for the first hour or so, this fire was burning in one area. Now the fire has spread to what's left of the home, the rest of the home. But, once that fire is out, crews will go inside and, try to get any kind of evidence they can and, any information they can about the potential shooter. But just looking at this live shot, you could see deputies lining this neighborhood. Definitely a lot more action that this neighborhood is used to seeing. So this is just one scene, one crime scene of 2 that we're focusing on. This is in Acton. We want to go to the first crime scene. That is in Agua Dulce at Fire Station 81. That is where 2 fire personnel were shot. Hermela Aragawe, she joins us live from the scene. Hermela, where are you at and what can you tell us?
Hi, Chris. Yeah, we're about a half a mile away from the fire station. Let me step out of the way so that you could see the scene. The CHP is holding the line about half a mile from that fire department, but we'll zoom in a little bit so you can see what we're looking at. We see a few police vehicles. We also see some EMT lights, about a dozen cars in full or in total. There's really a lot we don't know about the 2 people that were shot. We're trying to determine if one of them worked at the fire station, what their relationship was, and what may have led up to these shootings. Police are really just trying to deal with the active situation right now in terms of treating those who have been shot. That all we know is at least 2 people have been shot. We don't know if there were others around during the shooting and if others may have been injured in the process. But we are expecting a press conference at around 3 o'clock. So we hope to get more details then. For now, we're going to stay here where a lot of the media is stationed and see if we can gather more information. Yeah. Live in Agua Dulce, Hermela Aragawe, I'll send it back to you.
Yeah, Hermela, for people who don't know this area, obviously it's pretty remote. It's the desert. Describe what you see in this area. Are there a lot of homes, businesses? I mean, obviously you're a little bit away from where the shooting actually happened, but you know, what's the area look like?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a very remote area, not one home in sight. There is one home. Two homes. I was mistaken. A couple of homes within a viewing range, but for the most part, it's mountains to the left, mountains to the right, and it's just a small two-lane roadway here. So there's not a whole lot in terms of residences. The fire station seems to be stationed just kind of in the middle of nowhere there. So really, just like you described, pretty remote area.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, obviously they're keeping you back a distance while they investigate this shooting. How far back are you away? Can you even see the fire station from here?
That's a good question. We're about a half mile. We can't see the actual station, but we can see, let me step out of the way, but we can see all the vehicles that are stationed right in front of it. The station we believe is on the right-hand side of this road. We don't see any real buildings at all. There's a lot of trees there, so I imagine it's behind those trees. And so as far as seeing the actual building, we're not really able to do that, but I would say we're maybe about a half a mile away from the actual station.
Yeah, and just looking at that live shot, if we could zoom back in again, obviously with the camera, you can get in pretty close. There we go. Yeah, zoom in a little bit, and you can definitely see a lot of personnel out there. It looks like you have the ambulance out there. You've got LA County Sheriff's Department out there as well. You know, probably, you know, going through evidence, trying to figure out whatever they can, a motive. Was there one shooter? Was there more than one shooter? But, you know, it just breaks your heart to hear that there was a shooting at this fire station. I mean, you know, these are people who are out there working. They just, you know, start the day and, you know, someone comes in and does something like that, a tragic shooting like that, to say the least. And, you know, as Hermela was talking about, this is a pretty desolate area. This is the high desert. This is about 45 miles north of Los Angeles. Still is LA County. And, you know, not a lot of people who live in this area. And you could see law enforcement take off on that road, not sure exactly where they're going. And it appears a couple other vehicles, 1, 2, 3 vehicles, are also leaving the scene as well. Let's see if we'll watch these vehicles come and see if we can figure out. Hermela, if you can look with me, what does it say on these vehicles?
Yes.
Who are they?
I'll take a look in just a second. The first one was an unmarked police vehicle, we believe. This one looks like something like a Caltrans truck. That's what it looks like to me. So that may not necessarily be involved in that shooting scene. That one also looks like it's some sort of a maintenance Caltrans truck type of thing. So the vehicles that you're seeing leave the scene now may have nothing to do with the investigation at all. But the first vehicle that did come through looked like a detective or unmarked police vehicle. So we would think that that vehicle was a part of the investigation. And you're right, there's about a dozen. Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, I would say they may be escorting those vehicles out of the crime scene, because whenever there's a crime scene, you know, if you need to get out of the crime scene, usually there's some sort of escort to make sure that that person actually leaves and doesn't interfere with the actual investigation. But yeah, it looks like another sheriff's deputy is heading to the scene.
Exactly. There are some vehicles that came from the other side of the road. I think a couple of those trucks that we saw are from there. So it's possible, like you said, they were doing some work on the other side of the scene, and police are just helping them cut through, because otherwise, considering what kind of area this is, they probably would have to go a very long way around to get to this side. So I think it's possible that they had nothing to do with the investigation. But like you pointed out, there was a CHP, I believe that was on a motorcycle that just went through. So we're seeing some movement in that area. We've got vehicles coming out this way, couple of vehicles going into the scene, and there's some movement in the actual area as well. We see somebody on foot for the first time, I would say, that have gotten out of their car, and there's another person. So it looks like there's a lot of movement there. Maybe they may wrap up the investigation sooner than we think, but really just all speculating here in that sense. We do have a press conference that's happening at 3 o'clock, so we expect to get a lot of new information then. And, you know, we've all seen so many shootings recently, so the fact that this happened at a fire station and that there is a possibility that the shooter may have worked there really lends itself to that theory that those type of shootings are increasing. And so as the details of this shooting unfolds, we'll be able to get a sense of what exactly happened here and whether it was something to do with any workplace grievances or whether it was personal. You know, we talk a lot about people going through a lot during the pandemic and that kind of just coming to a head during this time. We see another vehicle, looks like a fire vehicle that's making its way this way. We'll see what exactly that is. But for now, I'll send it back to you, Chris.
Yeah, Hermela, and just to let people know, we have team coverage of this breaking news. Hermela on the right-hand side of the screen, she is live at the scene of where that shooting happened. That is Fire Station 81 off of Sierra Highway in Agua Dulce. She's trying to learn any information she can. There will be a press conference at 3 o'clock. Hopefully give us some more information. On the left hand on your screen, from the air, we have Sky 9 that has given us a shot of what's going on in Acton. This is where that potential suspect apparently went and basically set the house on fire. We don't know much about that suspect. We do know potentially one person has died at that scene. We definitely did see the SWAT team get a little bit closer to that home. And from the ground in Acton as well, Jeff Nguyen, he joins us live from the ground. And he's been talking to neighbors to give us a little idea of what this neighborhood is like. We definitely know it's in the high desert, very remote, so large property. Also a lot of livestock as well. A lot of people may own horses and you know, cattle, things like that in this area. But let's go ahead and go to Jeff Nguyen live from the ground. Jeff, I believe you're with another neighbor. Tell us who you're talking with.
Yeah, so this is Brian Dalrymple. Hey, Brian, talk to me about that property up there, because you and Carol, your wife, were so kind to kind of give us a little bit of detail on the history of that property.
Well, the property is set back quite a bit, but it was featured as a designer house in a magazine, but that had to be decades ago. And it's set back quite a bit from the street. It's single story, it's brown, it's more adobe style house.
So kind of like a Southwest design, modern Southwest design.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of it changing hands, can you kind of give us a little bit more insight on how often it changed hands and what happened recently in terms of who resided there?
Well, I heard that it may have changed hands within last year, but I don't know who would have gotten it, whether it's owned or rented. I'm not sure.
You know, one of the things that we are a little bit curious about is whether this is a through street or if it dead ends. I was looking at Google Maps earlier. It appeared to me that it works its way through at the top, but, you know, maybe I'm looking at that wrong. So can you kind of give me a little bit of insight about this street? And then also, have you seen any sort of ambulance or fire engine movement in the past couple hours?
Haven't really seen any fire or ambulance movement. This street here it's not a dead end. It curves around. It's called Bent Spur. So it'll go all the way around, and there's a stretch of dirt road, and then it's paved again, and it takes you over to Y8, which will take you through to Aliso Canyon.
What has the conversation been like with some of your neighbors? I know that you guys are kind of sporadically spread out here, so you don't really have a lot of contact, but have you interacted with any of your neighbors so far?
Interacted with Michael, who lives over here. We've known him for quite a few years. This is an opportunity when things like this happen to talk to your neighbors, and we do it more so than we should during times like this.
Yeah, you talk about the connection with your neighbors, and quite frankly, some of your neighbors who live in this area are people who serve us in the county at the fire department as well. To know that, you know, at least two members were shot, what goes through your mind at this point?
Well, I'm just kind of concerned about the overall climate, how something like that could happen. But I think it's very tragic. And just to have something like this happen.
Because in a lot of ways, your family is touched by the fire department, correct? I mean, you have a family member who works for a fire department?
Actually, I have a son-in-law that works for the sheriff department out in the Castaic area. So we appreciate them and support them 100%, fire and sheriff.
Yeah, so certainly public service is something that is at the top of your mind. Brian, thank you for being so gracious to give me your time. I really appreciate your insight and some of the context that you were able to provide us during this coverage. So thank you to you and your wife, Carol, so much for doing that. Thank you, Brian. So that's the latest from here. If I may, Chris, I don't know if the director wants me to keep on going. I'll keep on going unless told otherwise, but let me go ahead. Step aside because I think we're about to witness another water drop right now, because you can see some of the smoke that's rising from that property that's been burning for a significant amount of time right now. As we mentioned earlier, and from what neighbors have seen, we haven't seen fire engines or ambulances move through here, but we did see some armored vehicles by the sheriff's department showing up. So I think at this point it's probably fair to say that the sheriff's department is basically here to preserve the scene so that the coroner's office can move in and do their work. And as we are looking at these images, you can see that county fire helicopter doing their water drop, and right before they did their water drop, they kind of sounded off their alarm to notify people on the ground that there's a payload that's dropping. And certainly right now some of the folks on the ground are investigators from the sheriff's department, basically here to preserve the scene, to make sure that evidence isn't tampered with, and to make sure that everything stays in place so that crime scene investigators can get in here to basically process the scene. Certainly we don't know what's there, because sometimes there might be pieces of evidence that can tell the backstory to what led up to today. So we certainly don't want to speculate, in terms of whether there's a manifesto or anything like that, but it's certainly important to preserve everything as much as possible so that in the days ahead, hopefully investigators can have more clues. And as we speak about investigators, we are seeing a number of them driving through. I'm going to help get one of these police vehicles through. So that's why I'm holding the yellow tape, because there's a line of sheriff's vehicle coming through. That one is unmarked. Two black and white units are following right behind here. So earlier we did see a number of deputies leaving the scene. We saw a detective leaving the scene, taking off his bulletproof vest, but now maybe this is the crime scene investigation phase of this. And as we are talking about that, we are seeing the bomb squad moving in as well. So certainly don't want to speculate, but we were talking about earlier when we were driving up here, a lot of times, a lot of the folks who live in this area, and I'm also hearing this from neighbors as well, they like to hunt up here, and sometimes, you kind of have to bring in the experts to deal with, ammunition and whatnot if they are on a piece of property. We certainly don't know if, there are explosives or, explosive devices or bomb-making material. Certainly we don't know what touched off this fire. So, because they want to make sure that they have the experts in here to deal with some of the potential dangers before they send deputies in there or before they send the coroner's office in there. So that's why you saw that big rig moving in here from the bomb squad. Chris?
On the ground, we'll keep you on standby as we continue to follow this breaking story. And one of the things that's pretty interesting to talk about, this is a very remote area. There's not a lot of people who live here. Very small town community that obviously, with people living in this community, living in this neighborhood, when they hear that 2 people were shot at their local fire station, obviously hits close to home, literally. So you can imagine people are probably pretty panicked by what happened. And, usually a lot of times in areas like this, they see each other, whether it's at the grocery store or at the local diner or, any of those situations. So as you can imagine, people who live here, they want to know, who was this person? Did they live here? Did they live in this home? Why did they go into this fire station, shoot at least 2 people? You know, those are definitely questions, or we'll get the answers to them eventually. But right now, the big thing is just making sure that everyone stays safe. And you know, one of the things that I do take away from what's been going on is Jeff Nguyen. He's been doing a great job going live out there, and he basically said. He talked to one of the detectives who said there is no dire threat for law enforcement. I'm assuming that means for the community as well. But, you know, this community is not used to this kind of action. I mean, here in Los Angeles, definitely a lot more things happen. But in this part of LA County, a very rural, remote part of LA County, this isn't something we see very much. But this live shot from Sky 9 kind of gives you an idea. This is the high desert. It's close-ish to Palmdale, Lancaster. It's about 45 miles north of LA, Los Angeles, but this is still considered LA County, which is why you have LA County Sheriff's Department, which is leading this investigation. You have LA County Fire, which is focusing on the fire aspect. As Hermela told us, we are expecting a press conference to be held around 3 p.m. This afternoon at the fire station. And hopefully they'll be able to give us some information. A lot of times, this early in an investigation, they don't give that much. Obviously, there's a lot of information that they keep to themselves as they, you know, move forward and detectives continue. But watching this live shot right now of this fire, it appears that it's definitely burning new material right now because that fire is once again thick. That smoke is very dark. You know, it's been burning for quite some time, and probably within the last hour, they started doing water drops, and it seems like the water drops are helping a little bit, but I mean, what's left of this home, there really is not much left. I mean, it's been burning for quite some time, and, you know, crews at this point, you know, they can do water drops as much as they can, but they do have to let it burn, and as we just saw, in Jeff's live shot, the bomb squad actually just drove by, and you know they have to be cautious, and you know that's part of the reason why SWAT officers stayed back a little bit, because you know there were reports that when the suspect was there, that person reported that they would shoot anyone that approached the home. So you hear something like that, you have to be careful, you have to be cautious, and who knows, you know, if any landmines or bombs were, you know, set off around the home, which is why the bomb squad is there. They'll probably send in the robot to kind of check that area out. So all they can do is let this fire burn. Thankfully, this isn't a neighborhood where there's not a lot of homes, and a lot of those homes are spread apart. So they don't have to worry about that fire spreading to other homes or what have you. I know a lot of people who live in this area, they own horses. A lot of horseback riding is done in that area as well. A lot of ranch-style homes as well. But taking a live look at this home, literally burn to the ground. Just, you know, a heartbreaking story. The fact that there's 2 people that were shot in that fire station, I mean, definitely just heartbreaking. And we want to let you know, Jasmine Veal actually just joined me right now. Jasmine, thanks so much for joining us. To catch people up, this has been going on since 10:54 this morning. We know a person went into the fire station 81 in Agua Dulce, then took off. And at that point, there was an active shooter investigation that was going on. At one point, they pulled over someone thinking that person was the shooter. Well, that person was not. Then they get a call 15 minutes away, 10 miles away in Acton, of a house on fire where they believe that suspect was. Then, you know, they get to the scene. Reports say that that person told law enforcement, stay away or I'll shoot you. Time goes on, we hear about reports of a body in the backyard. A medic went down, so potentially up to 2 fatalities at this point. And this fire has been burning ever since because they got to be careful. But shortly before you got here, the SWAT officers are moving in.
The medic went already inside to check, or you're saying?
In the backyard, the medic,
okay.
Yeah.
once the body was possibly self-inflicted, hearing reports.
Exactly.
Well, I'm telling you, and this has been streaming as you guys have been talking about on CBS in Los Angeles, and my phone battery almost died. You've wanted to make sure you caught every second of information because it is so tragic. It is coming off of the tragic news we got yesterday of a deputy who was shot and killed in the Yucca Valley area over a routine traffic stop. So it's just heartbreaking to hear about these heroes and these law enforcement personnel and now firefighters being killed. And it was very, very hard to watch this morning. And we are, again, waiting on that news conference to happen in the next hour and a half or so from the LA County Sheriff's Office department to give us the latest on exactly what transpired here. And was the suspect someone who had worked, or why this person targeted that Fire Station 81 in Agua Dulce? Why did they walk in there and target those 2 fire personnel whose family members are just finding out now that early, relatively early, the start of the day, that a shooting like this happened and that their family members were shot. And we don't know their condition, correct? Chris, you haven't heard anything on those 2 fire personnel. They were just airlifted out. We heard that they were shot.
Yes.
And now we are hearing about this body in the backyard or in the back of this burning home, believed to be the suspect.
Yeah, all we know right now is LA County Fire. They did release a tweet basically saying at least 1 person was shot at the LA County Fire Department, and it's just, heartbreaking to hear that something like this is going on, but definitely an active scene. And, we have Jeff Nguyen, who's live on the ground. We have Hermela, who's live at Fire Station 81, who's talking a little bit about what's going on. But back to that tweet just pulled up.
Yeah.
They mentioned, it is with heavy hearts that LA County Fire confirms that a tragic shooting occurred.
And that was their first tweet about this incident that went out.
And those are words you don't want to hear. No. Heavy hearts, tragic shooting. And then, we hear that we can confirm that 2 people were actually shot inside that fire station.
And just before 11 this morning, like I said, the day, they were just gearing up for their day or changing shifts. I don't know what schedule, if they were on 3 days on, 2 days off, but, ready to respond and help these communities. And we are in the height of fire season as we approach, as we're getting really into these hot months and dry. I mean, they put their lives on the line every single day, and it's very, very tragic. And they don't expect, and I think DeMarco is saying that, a fire station is such a safe haven. It's where you drop off babies if you need to, if a child is abandoned. A big part of the community. Yeah, huge part of the community. And and they will be there in a moment's notice if you knock on the door, if you call ahead. It was deputies from the Palmdale station who responded to the Los Angeles County Fire Department there, 81, after they heard about the shooting there in Agua Dulce, regarding those multiple gunshot victims at that location. And then just trying to figure out, why did this person target these 2, the fire, I guess the entire department is a target.
And that we may never know. Victims, it's one of those situations that you just don't know. But I mean, Jasmine, looking at this fire right now, this house, a complete loss. And a viewer just texted me saying, looks like there's a casita in the back that has not burned. And that could be part of the reason why, SWAT is being hesitant to go inside the home.
They don't know who else might be there, or
potentially, they've got to be cautious. We did speak with an officer, retired officer from San Bernardino SWAT team. 1 second, it seems the producer is talking to me. What was that?
Someone's. Okay, Desmond Shaw is overhead is over the scene there of Fire Station 81 where the shooting happened. Des, are you with us?
Yeah, Jasmine and Chris, I am with you here off the 8700 block of Sierra Highway, looking at the fire station where this horrible incident happened early this morning, just before 11 o'clock, and you can see the investigation really, probably just now beginning to ramp up. You're going to have, this is a Sierra Highway right here, and this will be shut down for quite some time as LA County Sheriff's deputies and LA County Fire conduct this investigation. Any time there's, an incident like this at a home or something, you think about just how long those investigations take. Now, you could multiply that probably times 5 when you're talking about an incident, a serious shooting occurring at a fire station or a police station or something like this. So you see some sheriff's deputies out there. This investigation just now beginning to ramp up, I would say, right now. Chris and Jasmine.
Okay, Des, thanks so much. Keep us posted on the kind of activity, and it's walking through, talking to the witnesses. What did they see? Piecing together that information about the suspect. Where did this person come from? What the kind of history he or she might have had with Fire Station 81 of all places, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, one of the things that we did find out today is that according to property records, the person that owns that home may have been a former or current employee of LA County Fire. But, you know, that's all we know with that home right there. But definitely a beautiful home that is now basically being burnt to the ground. And if you're looking, well, we were looking at the other shot that that showed Fire Station 81. And yeah, there we go. There's not a lot in that area. You know, Hermela did a live shot, and, you know, maybe there's a couple houses, and
they were keeping her a half mile away.
And they were keeping her away. We probably saw better than she did because we were able to see with the camera zoomed all the way in, you know.
Well, and the fact that the suspect, when he went, or she, I should say, went back to the house there in Acton, that they would shoot anyone that comes close. So that made the SWAT team pull back, obviously, immediately, as they had just begun their investigation, hoping that they could go in and make sure that no one else would become victim to this suspect who returned to this home. So it's just a string of events, you know, from the active shooter calls that went out, from the suspect fleeing the scene, ending up here at this mansion, and then setting it on fire, and then that body being found in the backyard, down in a pool in the backyard of that home.
Yeah, and let's go to Jeff Nguyen. Jeff, I have a friend who lives in Agua Dulce, and he said he thinks he may have heard a loud explosion. Have you heard anything like that in that area?
You know, to be honest with you, I have not heard any explosions, but I can see why you would bring that up, because we saw earlier in my previous live report a bomb squad truck did go through the yellow tape. I want to add to our coverage a little bit, because about 3 minutes ago there was a SoCal Edison truck. You know, it's one of the ones with the cherry picker on it. It went through as well. I spoke to one of the deputies out here. The reason the SoCal Edison truck went up the hill was basically to cut off electricity to the property that's burning right there, to make sure that it's a little bit safer. You know, right now it's certainly very dangerous, very volatile. You've got, you know, a live fire, and I'm going to step aside so you can see just how intense it is, because the smoke up there is very thick and very black. So when you have all that's burning up there, and then if you have a live electrical line running through it, you know, you have so many jeopardies happening simultaneously, and that's why SoCal Edison is going up there to basically cut off the power to at least diminish, you know, one of the factors out here. In terms of what's burning up there, we have been speaking to a number of neighbors. There's a couple, Brian and Carol, who told us, as we look at that water drop right there, that property has changed hands a number of times, and Brian Carroll believes that property was up for sale in at least the last couple of years. And so in terms of who lives there, they don't know the person personally, but they do know that that person moved in relatively recently. Unclear if the new occupants were renters or if they were the new owners of that property. But again, you know, we saw the bomb squad going up there. A number of the neighbors out here tell us that a lot of folks who live in this area like to go hunting, so, you know, there are concerns that there may be ammunition in there, which is why the bomb squad headed up there. And also, you know, when you have a fire such as this, the last thing you want to deal with are explosives or bomb-making devices, because we certainly don't know how this fire started. Again, not speculating or anything, but, you know, I was up in San Jose just less than a week ago, and the suspect in a shooting up there started a fire at his house, and the reporting from the Sheriff's Department up in San Jose in Santa Clara County was that suspect basically had explosives cooking in a crock pot that he left basically cooking, and the fire basically erupted about an hour after he left his house. So at this point, certainly don't want to speculate at all, but what we do know is that, you know, the Sheriff's Department wants to make it as safe as possible for their investigators to go in there, as well as the coroners. And at this point, the posture that the fire department is taking is that they're just going to continue with these aerial drops. They're not putting human beings in there because they probably deem that it is just far too unsafe. In terms of the conditions out here, you can see some of the trees swaying in front of us, but the breeze is very light, and so there is a lot of clearance around this property that we were able to see as we were driving here with the aerial view from our helicopter. So at this point, there isn't a great concern that this fire is going to jump onto another property. Most of the properties around here are little ranch homes, and a lot of them have a lot of clearance. Some of them have corrals for their livestock or their horses, and so there is a lot of a defensible space. So for the time being, time is kind of on their side a little bit, and they're going to just kind of continue with this aerial bucket brigade. You can probably hear some of the pulsating sound of the LA County Fire helicopter that is about to kind of circle right over us as it goes into John Vincent's line of sight, and it is circling that thick plume of smoke. And to give you some context, you can see, those helicopters are relatively large aircraft, and as it circles the property, you can just see how wide and expansive that plume of smoke is, because the fire is certainly pretty intense, and it basically kind of dwarfs these helicopters as thick, heavy black smoke rises from that property. Chris, Jasmine?
Yeah, Jeff, one of the things that we just want to talk about, LA County Supervisor Hilda Solis just sent out a tweet, and it's one of those tweets that just really breaks your heart, talking about the shooting. We know 2 people were shot inside that fire station, and her tweet writes, "My most sincerest condolences to the family of the firefighter who was tragically killed in today's shooting at Fire Station 81 in Agua Dulce. My thoughts are with our LA County Fire Department family. At my direction, flags will be flown half-staff at all county buildings." And just gives you chills, Jasmine, reading that and seeing something like that, and just, how tragic and heartbreaking this is.
And that's probably why they've taken so long, or they pushed the news conference back until 3 o'clock, so that not only the government officials and leaders can get the information they need, but to contact the family of the firefighter, who Supervisor Solis just is sending out their condolences that, in fact, a firefighter was killed. So we can at least confirm through the county supervisor that she is hearing about the death of that firefighter, and yet another fire personnel being shot as well during that active shooter situation this morning at Fire Station 81. And the Placentia Fire and Life Safety Department, they also just tweeted out that, obviously news is spreading fast in this day and age, and they say they are very saddened by the tragic shooting that occurred there at the Fire Station 81 in Agua Dulce. Our thoughts and prayers are going out to the Los Angeles County Fire Department family, friends of all people involved in this incident, because yes, in fact, those who witnessed the shooting of their colleagues, of their friends in that station, it's and the fear that they went through seeing something like this. And we've had so many mass shootings, and I think we had some stats last night on KCAL 9 News. I think it was over 60 in just this last month in the country, but just one mass shooting after another, and this being an active shooter that went into a fire station. It's just
and we don't know if this was an isolated scene, but you're from a small town, so you understand that this is a small town as well.
Neighbors.
You know your neighbors. When something like this happens, that whole community is broken for a while. I mean,
absolutely.
Hearing news like this, for this to happen at their fire station, their local heroes who they call upon in times of need. It's just hard.
You see them at the park. You see them at the grocery store. The one
and there's not very many
gas
of them.
station in town.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And just what? And then the questions about, could we have prevented this? These are going to be the things that follow in the coming days. What did we see the red flags? How did they anger this person so much that they would have done this horrific thing? And as this investigation unfolds, we're going to find out those answers. But it's horrific, and I can't say it. I mean, just coming off of the horrible few weeks that we've had. I mean, and we talk about mental health, and we're going to be addressing. Actually, we had a planned special this afternoon on KCAL 9 News at 4 o'clock about mental health. It's been a tough few weeks, to say the least. Not even the toughest year that we've had, but now this. And so my heart and our prayers are going out to all of those affected by this tragedy today.
Yeah, I mean, it really is hard. You know, in Agua Dulce and Acton, they're not far from each other, especially when it comes to small towns.
About 10, 15 miles,
a 15-minute
right?
drive, 10 miles. So definitely close. And my friend is actually in Agua Dulce, not in Acton. So the loud noise explosion that he heard was coming from where the shooting happened, at the fire station. That he said that it sounded like thunder and the windows rattled a little. So I'm wondering, you know, what's going on at that fire station. Obviously an active investigation, but that's
concerning.
Where the crime first started.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know, we have a ground crew as well. Hermela's there, and a presser is going to be in about the next hour.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll learn more.
Well,
about
and
that.
you don't know, and when you hear about these active shooters, they come, you know, in other past incidents, you've seen they've come armed with multiple rounds of ammo, explosives, or, you know, who knows what this person had planned and why they took off when they did, and what other things that they need to do
Obviously,
to secure
they
the scene
wanted
at the
attention
fire
if they
station.
set the house on fire.
Right, and going and leaving that scene to go directly back to this house, whether they owned it or rented it or whatnot. But the property records are saying that it was at one time was under the an LA County firefighter. So, yeah, a very bizarre and tragic string of events. And Hermela Aragawi, from Jeff Nguyen to Hermela, she's there at the first scene. The active shooter barged into this fire station there in Agua Dulce. So I think we're going to check back in with Hermela and see if she's gathered anything else.
Hi, Jasmine. Yeah, you know, you mentioned mental health, right? When you go really through the scene, the timeline of the scene, you can sort of imagine what kind of mental state that the shooter was. Let me get out of the way so you can see the scene. We are at the fire station where the shooter first came to. We believe there were 2 people shot. One died from their injuries. The other, we believe, is in the hospital being treated. We do not know the condition of that person. The shooter is also reportedly a firefighter himself. That's according to the LA Times, and we are trying to confirm that as well. So it is what we thought it was, which is a workplace shooting. Now, what it was about, obviously at this point we don't know, but we saw what happened in San Jose. And last week we talked to an expert, a workplace threat assessment expert, who said that these kind of things don't come out of nowhere. Somebody doesn't just snap and go to their employer and shoot. What he told us was, in most cases, in workplace shootings, it's grievances that have gone on for a long time, whether real or perceived. And so it's possible that this person planned this, talked to some other people about this, or gave some sort of an indication that this was something that he or she would do. Right now, the scene is looking pretty similar to what it did when we last came to me. It's about a dozen vehicles, still a couple of firefighter vehicles with their lights on the scene, a police investigator's vehicle. They're probably trying to comb through that, the scene of the shooting, and try to gather some details about how it may have happened, and what exactly took place right before the shots were fired. Again, we're still trying to determine the condition of the second person, but we know at least 2 people were shot. So the shooter came, shot 2 people here, and then went to a home. We believe it's his home, about 8 miles away in Acton, in a white Tundra pickup. And that was what police officers were looking for in their search for him. So, and then, of course, when they got there, that's the scene where Jeff is. There was a fire that was set, and he appeared to have shot himself as well. So that's sort of the timeline there for someone to come to their place of work and then to go home and set their home on fire. Obviously, there's some questions about the mental status of the person, and this continues to be an issue that is going to increasingly be a concern as we see more mass shootings in general, and more workplace shooting as well. We've talked a lot about mental health in the pandemic, and now that we're coming out of it, one of the mass shooting experts we talked to says it's not so much that the mental status of people has changed since the pandemic. It's just right now, as things are opening up, they're going back to work, the grocery stores are open, the retail shops are open, and there's just more of an opportunity essentially to make that kind of an impact or get that kind of negative attention. So still a lot of question here about the status of the employee and what exactly led up to it. We've heard some property records show that the home belongs to a veteran firefighter, so it's possible that this person has worked for this fire department for a very long time, which makes it even all the more sad. LA Fire has tweeted out their condolences, as well as Supervisor Catherine Barger and Supervisor Hildo Solis, which you guys read there. So obviously we will hopefully get some more information about the firefighter that was killed, the one that was injured, and as well as the shooter coming up at the 3 o'clock press conference. For now, I'll send it back to you.
Yeah, tragic that this seems to be shaping up as yet another workplace shooting. So waiting to hear on that. And you mentioned Supervisor Catherine Barger, and she's saying she is currently on her way up to the fire station in Agua Dulce. So Fire Station 81, where this took place. She said she too has limited information at this time. She's going to share as much as she can as she learns more. But that her heart is with our LA County Fire Department, all those firefighters and the families, of course, of those affected. So we can tell you that a supervisor confirming one firefighter was shot and killed. We know another fire personnel, we don't know what rank, what position yet, was also shot. We're waiting to get word on that person's condition. So you have 2 fire department, 1 dead, 1 shot, and waiting to hear word about their condition. Yeah, and as the LA Times is reporting, the shooter was a firefighter. So just as you mentioned, another workplace shooting, and just so tragic to hear. But I mean, you can see the home, just it's nothing but ashes at this point. It's and been what burning evidence for a burned while. up in there, and that's going to make it even more difficult. And
there was concern about propane tanks being inside the home. Obviously, with propane tanks and fire, it's going to cause mass spreading. And I mean, just look at that. I mean, just watching it from the beginning, where it was a home with a fire in the back corner, and now it's just being burnt to ashes. And thankfully it's not very windy, so they don't have to worry about flying embers going into
and causing a bigger issue,
issue, bigger fires for the neighbors. But I mean, you gotta think for these neighbors. I mean, this is a lot going on. This is a quiet neighborhood, and
we don't even know who owned the home, whether this was actually the suspect's personal residence at the time,
or if anyone was
inside
the home.
Right.
What was inside the home, like you just mentioned, a lot of that evidence now being burnt.
And they did do water drops, but they would not approach it. So that was how tense the situation was until they could confirm that the body was, they found what they believe was the suspect's body in the backyard in the pool area, who died, according to authorities, from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. So
I mean, we literally watched this house burn to the ground. And then there's the little casita in the back. And potentially that is the back of the home where that person, that suspect, may have been
found.
So maybe that's why they're worried about that home. But maybe that little casita or whatever that is has some information inside there.
Yeah.
But
and still burning at this hour. And now we are, if this happened just before 11, 3 hours into this. And obviously, trying to contact as many of those family members as possible. But how worried if you hear about that active shooter and, your husband, wife, brother, sister is at work. And just like any of these shootings that we've seen, the one that just, took place up along the Central Coast, Northern California, you just rush to the scene, but you can't get close and you can't get the answers. And you are so worried about your loved one being there at work where you think and believe and they should be safe.
Well, even for law enforcement, when we first got to the scene, we noticed deputies were...
Right there,
that was a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they're trained to do this, but that hit the house.
Right. When they're trying to get it out, but go ahead.
Perfectly. So deputies were questioning neighbors and people that may live in that area. We saw one guy with his hands up because at that point, they just got to the home. They didn't know who the suspect is, who they were looking for. So at that point, anyone could be an option.
Right.
And, they also, we were hearing that they pulled somebody over earlier in the day, but that was like the wrong person. Because in an active shooter situation, you have no idea who or what you're looking for. Exactly.
Yeah, like what we saw with the terrorist attack in San Bernardino a number of years ago. Had to track them down, but it took a few hours for them to figure out what route they were on, where they were, and then at least in this instance, from what we've been able to see, it seems contained. And we have not heard about any other searches underway or, like you said, any other threats to the public or to law enforcement. So that's the word coming from authorities. So I'm hoping that this is the the scene of, and there aren't going to be any other scenes, you know. But if your friend's hearing explosions, it's who knows what else they might find.
Well, he didn't know what it was. He
department.
just
Sure.
said the house rattled a little bit. He thought maybe an earthquake. And
Well,
that's the last thing you want to hear. But
and
that's near
maybe why
Agua
they're
Dulce.
keeping everyone so far back too.
Yeah, but that was a good water drop. I mean, that definitely put out
They
quite
need
a
to
bit of
move
the
in.
fire because
Yeah.
we don't have fire crews on the ground. They've got to be careful. So
Mhm.
they're battling this all from air. But that just goes to show, you know, the professionalism and how trained these firefighters are because, you know, it takes time to get that water, and that water drop was a good one. And,
Yeah.
But, you know, Jasmine, there's a lot of livestock in this area as well, a lot of horses and ranches. Yeah.
To evacuate.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, they're wondering what's going on, too, because, you know, on the ground, the deputies aren't giving them that much information.
It's just too bad. I mean, it's so sad and so tragic, and coming off of, like, I can't stress enough. I hope everyone is taking care of themselves, you know.
What's
and
to the right of the screen? Is that is that for livestook?
I saw
Or
some
is that a
horses
house?
earlier from.
You see the white car and then the building. I guess it's on the top of the screen
From
now.
Skyline. Well, it looks like a bunch of ranches, or maybe
Yeah.
part of the property or not. But Desmond Shaw, he's been overhead in Sky 9. Des, what are you hearing?
Well, Jasmine and Chris, we just noticed it looks like LA County Sheriff's deputies, maybe the homicide detectives that just arrived on the scene, I believe, in this white Dodge Challenger right here. We saw them get out and communicate with other deputies. Now that we can confirm that one of the firefighters has lost their life in this horrible incident here at Fire Station 81, the 8700 block of Sierra Highway. Still seeing more sheriff's deputies arriving here. So they just got here. I also noticed what might have been a battalion chief. He was dressed in formal clothing, almost kind of looked like a Navy admiral or something, and they went inside this shed here. So they may be setting up kind of their mobile command center inside of this building here, which is attached to the property of the fire station, just to widen out and show you the area that we're talking about here. And you can see, you know, this is that section of Sierra Highway that's only one lane in each direction. This section of Acton, pretty sparsely populated area, but I would expect Sierra Highway to be shut down for many, many hours while this takes place. They're going to need all the space that they can get here. You're going to have, you know, a lot of logistics looking, you know, for bullet casings and trying to recreate what happened, talking to any, you know, traumatized witnesses that may still be here. So these investigations take a long, long time to complete. But again, it looks like the sheriff's deputies might be homicide detectives that just arrived on the scene. And we're still waiting for the coroner now to come to the scene as well. Now that this has all been confirmed, we're certain that the LA County coroner will be coming up here. It'll be quite a drive for them. They'll be coming from downtown Los Angeles near County General Hospital, so off the 5 and the 10 freeway. They'll have to contend with some traffic to get up here. It often takes the coroner's office, just from experience, I can tell you, it takes them a long time to respond to these kind of incidents. So their arrival, I would not say imminent at this point, perhaps within the next hour or so. But you can see the sheriff's deputies now conferring with detectives from LA County Sheriff's out here at Fire Station 81. Jasmine and Chris.
All right, Desmond Shaw, overhead. Thank you so much for that update. And in less than an hour now, we're going to be getting an update from the LA County Sheriff's Department on this. But again, law enforcement sources telling the LA Times that they believe LA County Fire Department saying that the shooter was a firefighter as well. So possible colleague then of Fire Station, you know, the firefighters who work and dedicate all of their career to Fire Station 81. This gunman just charging in just before 11 and opening fire, killing one firefighter, and as far as we know, seriously injuring another. We are waiting for word on that other fire personnel's condition. But the gunman...
Another water drop.
Yeah.
Another
Still trying to put out those stubborn flames.
That was another great drop, though.
And you know, even on scene, deputies have been waiting to approach, and at one point they pulled back because the gunman started threatening or even shooting at LA County Sheriff's deputies. barricaded in this house 10 miles from where the shooting took place at the fire station. And then the fire broke out, and then, as we've been reporting, a body found in the backyard believed to be that of the suspect.
Yeah, so at that point, all they can do is, sit back and watch and wait for the fire to burn, just because of, those concerns of what could happen to law enforcement, what could happen to firefighters that are on the ground. So looking at that split box, just to give you a heads up, you're looking at two different live shots. Well, this one right here, this is the live shot we've been looking at all day, but the one on the left-hand side of your screen, that is Agua Dulce. The right-hand side of your screen is Acton, and right there, that is where the fire station is, where the first crime was reported, where 2 people were shot inside there. And that call went out as an active shooter investigation. But just to give you an idea of this area, you could see this is going to be an active crime scene for several hours, likely throughout the rest of the day, because whenever you're dealing with a homicide or someone who has been shot and killed, then it turns into a death investigation. And just looking at this, this shot, there's really not a lot in this area in Agua Dulce. There's, several ranch homes, what have you, but at the same time, it's a pretty isolated part of LA County. And when you think of LA County, you don't think of this, but it just shows how large the county really is.
Right, and how spread out. And these firefighters, that's why they live and work in these communities, especially so far away from the city or other big hubs, other big metro hubs. And so, I don't know how many, we do not know how many people were inside the fire station at the time, around 11 when that shooting happened this morning. If they were wrapping up the shift, if they were changing shifts when this happened, if they tried to engage with the suspect at one point, talk him or her out of doing whatever they were going to do. We just don't know how that happened, or if they just barged in and started firing, and that just breaks my heart. And I reported back in 2013, I remember reporting on the Christopher Dorner. Oh, yeah. It just some parallels here, and it reminded me of that, chasing Christopher Dorner, how it was 2013, I just had to look up the date, but, committing a series of shootings throughout Southern California. Yeah. The fact that he was a police officer, and he was targeting other law enforcement officers, and sending out a manifesto, and we don't know anything about this suspect, if they had any kind of manifesto or whatever they had, but it triggers those emotions of like, hearing about one of your colleagues turning in a workplace shooting like this, turning on others.
100%. And just so you know, we are following this story throughout the day. We've got team coverage from the ground, from both Agua Dulce and Acton as well, also from the air of 2 different live shots. So we want to give you all vantage points here on KCAL 9 News, also on CBSN Los Angeles. And Jeff Nguyen, he's been live on the ground. I'm not sure if we're able to get him anytime soon, but he's been talking to neighbors in that area who, to try to get some idea of who this person is without speculating too much. And, they're really not sharing that much. They mentioned that the person just moved in there. They're not sure if they own the home, if they rented the home. But, it's pretty interesting, considering this neighborhood is so small, that they really didn't know who that person was or much about them. And maybe the ones that did, they're not saying much about it. But let me ask our producer in the booth, is Jeff Nguyen able to do a live shot to just kind of see what it's looking like in that neighborhood? Because, crews, they're still standing back where that fire is. All right, so we do have Jeff Nguyen. Jeff Nguyen, let's go back to you. I know you've been talking with neighbors and, with law enforcement as well. What does it look like right now? How are things going?
Let me go ahead and just step aside so that Joelle Fallon can kind of push in on the image out here for you. The smoke is a lot less thick right now. We've seen a series of airdrops that have taken place. We have also seen the bomb squad heading up there, as well as detectives. And then add to that, about 25 minutes ago, SoCal Edison had one of its bucket trucks heading up there. We were told by a sheriff's deputy the reason SoCal Edison was heading up there was to cut the power out from the property to reduce the danger up there. And as we're talking to you, we see another LA County Fire Department water dropping helicopter heading over to that property. One of the neighbors out here told us that the property itself is about 3 acres or so. Another neighbor said that it had changed hands a number of times, and it was up for sale as far back as about 2 years ago. And so at this point, because the way these properties are kind of spaced out, they're kind of little ranch homes, if you will. Folks around here don't really mix together all that much. From where we are right now, we can hear the alert from the water dropping helicopter as it swoops down to release that payload right there. But as you mentioned, Chris, the priority right now at this point is dealing with this fire, and then after that they're going to have to process this scene. And so in order to do that, they kind of have to make sure that the scene is safe. Earlier, a number of neighbors told us they certainly don't know the person who occupied that home, but a lot of folks out here do like to hunt, and so because of that, they might have ammunition stored in there. So because of that, the fire department as well as the sheriff's department did not go rushing in there. And speaking of the fire department, the effort has exclusively been by air all afternoon. We have not seen any fire trucks going in there. We have not seen any ambulances going up there. But this is probably the least amount of smoke that we have seen since we got here a little bit before noon today. Chris, Jasmine.
All right, let's just update folks on what we know so far as we await this news conference. 2:20 right now, and you're watching this streaming on CBS in Los Angeles and KCAL 9. So we do know, we can confirm at least one firefighter was shot and killed there at a Los Angeles County Fire Department station in Agua Dulce, Fire Station 81, this morning just before 11 when a shooter, a gunman barged in and opened fire. A shooting that is believed to be linked to this large fire that is barely now burning, but it was going pretty good at this home in Acton, this mansion, where a body then was found, believed to be that of the suspect, who died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound in the backyard. So at least, we can tell you that 2 fire personnel were shot this morning inside of the station. 2 fire personnel shot. 1 died. We are waiting to hear about the condition of that other, possibly another firefighter who was then shot as well. So that is where we are at. The investigation in the very early stages. We haven't been allowed close to that fire department, that Fire Station 81. So it's hard to see if they are still concerned about any other threats that may be there. I'm just talking in terms of explosives or anything that may pose an additional threat to those investigators. But we haven't heard of that. They just are probably keeping people back and talking to the witnesses.
They're now
inside,
approaching
and they're
the home.
this home.
This is the closest we've seen them all day.
So slowly making their way toward this house now.
And it looks like that's SWAT, yeah?
In their tactical gear, that's what I believe.
Completely.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, they've got to be careful to make sure that nothing's booby trapped or what have you. And obviously, that's probably a concern. And but they're making progress. But keep in mind, this shooting happened less than 4 hours ago, so it's still a developing story. And we actually have. Okay, it looks like they're going under that tree, and they're keeping distance. But Jasmine, this is the most progress we've seen throughout the day. That home. It's amazing. When it first started, it was,
just in the back.
Just in the back corner, yeah. And now, I mean, obviously a complete loss. But we have a map we want to show you to kind of give you an idea of where these 2 scenes are and how close they are. Okay, so this is all happening in LA County. LA County, very large, spread out county, about 45 miles north of Los Angeles. The shooting happened in Agua Dulce, about 10 miles away, or a 15-minute drive in Acton is where the second scene is. That's where that fire is. So it goes to show how close the 2 scenes are, but yet still spread apart, because 10 miles in the city of Los Angeles could take a long time. 10 miles in an area like that, 15 minutes.
But I think the fire station serves
that
entire precinct, or whatever you want to call it. But the fire station must serve that entire community up there. But I'm just wondering if there is another fire station, or how. Well, now they have to cover this fire station, so they're obviously going to bring in more firefighters today to then back up the one that is currently and tragically closed right now. So they will still have people ready to respond to other emergencies that are taking place. So they are coordinating that. But yeah, and we've been talking about just how remote you know your neighbors fairly well, or at least you've seen them out and about, and you've driven past that fire station numerous times if you live in the area, and gotten to know them. I know my local Corner Fire Department. They're just a few blocks away, and you get to know them very well, and you wave hi, and it's just so sad that something. What it sounds like is the suspect was a colleague or a firefighter, is what we're hearing from some sources. So,
and it's interesting. Where do you go from here? You talked earlier about the fire and the evidence being burned, but as far as the crews going in, I guess you look for bodies. You try to see if there's anyone else inside that home, but it definitely makes this investigation a little harder. Obviously, this person knew what they were doing with setting the house on fire.
Had a plan.
And if there were propane tanks inside that actual home, that's going to cause the fire to spread quickly and, burn all the evidence.
So this large mansion is there on the 2600 block of Brent Spur Drive in Acton. It's, again, 10 miles from the fire station. And they didn't know exactly initially if the fire was even linked to the shooting, but they figured it out pretty quickly. And the moment that suspect, the gunman, started saying, "Stay back, I'm going to shoot you," as law enforcement was approaching, that's when it turned into even more of a SWAT situation where they pulled back.
Right.
The flames were raging.
Because they didn't know what they were dealing with.
Right.
Yeah.
And searching for that suspect up until the point that they figured out that this is where and piecing together the information, obviously from witnesses saying, hey, this is, they had to have something saying, we know that this was the gunman, this is the person you need to go after. And so that's what got them in that direction.
Completely.
To follow the suspect.
For sure. And if it was somebody who may have worked at that fire station, obviously they have a name, an address, etc., all of the above. And, just by looking at this, it doesn't seem like there's any active flames. Now you just see some smoke. I mean, it really burned pretty fastly at the end. What was that, Micah, our producer?
We're going to go to Desmond Shaw.
Okay.
Yep, overhead, as he has been. Desmond in Sky 9, and you're over the fire station where the shooting happened. Tell us what you know now.
Yeah, Chris and Jazz, we just watched some sheriffs, the homicide detectives from LA County Sheriff's Department that just arrived, and looked like deputies were getting them up to speed as they began their investigation. Just watched them walk into this entrance right here. So wondering if this is where the actual shooting occurred, kind of right between where the bay is where they keep one of the engines and the front entrance, which is right there. So the actual shooting may have taken place in this area. Our understanding is that they actually used this truck right here in the center of the screen to call in the shooting earlier. So I'm just kind of imagining a situation where, firefighters ran out after the shooting took place and they got inside this truck and actually radioed that emergency to sheriff's deputies to come to the scene as this was all unfolding. And we also learned that sheriffs are actually, LA County Fire Department, their Air Rescue 22 actually landed the helicopter here and transported one of the firefighters, the one that was injured, whose condition is still unknown. He was airlifted to Henry Mayo Clinic in the Santa Clarita Valley. We're wondering if they landed right here in the middle of the street or landed here in this kind of large back lot. But they wanted to expedite that firefighter's transport as quickly as possible. So even though it's not too far of a distance, they did conduct that airlift earlier. So again, just kind of showing how some of this transpired as it was happening earlier this afternoon. But we have a lot of investigators down here, maybe a dozen or so. And we watched them all walk inside right there in the center of the screen, kind of that middle entrance, perhaps a garage, maintenance garage or something where we believe the actual shooting took place. There was also a lot of personnel in this shed over here where they may be setting up a bit of a mobile command center. So you see, I'll widen out and show you the area, Sierra Highway here, the 8700 block of Sierra Highway in Agua Dulce, and just to give you an idea of the area that we're talking about. And the Sierra Highway will be shut down for many, many hours for this. Still waiting for the coroner to arrive. We haven't even heard actually that they're on the way to this. It could take a surprising amount of time to get the coroners up here, and they have to come all the way from the Boyle Heights area. So may still be some time for them to arrive to attend to the fallen firefighter, which that we can now confirm the one has indeed been killed in this horrible incident. The other one transported, airlifted to a hospital in Santa Clarita in unknown condition. Chris and Jasmine, back to you.
All right. Yeah. Des, thanks so much. And Supervisor Barger is just confirming that 3 p.m. news conference will be happening. They're going to be at Fire Station 150 in Santa Clarita. So her, along with several other supervisors, obviously the Sheriff's Department will be there. And so they are all gathering and trying to get in place now. So keep it right here, streaming if you do have to leave, or take us with you on CBSN Los Angeles, which you could find through our news app. And Chris, you've been on several hours now since this, moments after this happened.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just looking at the images now compared to what we saw just a few hours ago, I mean, it just blows my mind. Just a few hours ago, there was this large home, nestled right in the hillside right there. Now it's nothing but ashes. And we actually spoke with a realtor who has video of what the home looked like. Let's see if we can show that video right now. We can give you a little bit of information. So,
okay, on your right.
Yeah, this is the home. I mean, you can see just how beautiful it is. And apparently it sold in
$700,000?
$700,000 back July of 2020. Some of the marketing that they put behind this house, saying it's an award-winning Southwest custom home, spectacular views. You can see that right there. Tree-lined driveway leads to Hilltop Masterpiece. There's 2 master suites inside. There's a detached casita, the 3rd bedroom. There's an art studio. So you could just see how beautiful this home is. I mean, selling for nearly $1 million in this remote area, and built in 1989. And you see what it used to be, and you see what it is now, and it's just...
Well, it's just all very strange.
It's so strange.
And for such a huge house, I mean, it's hard to believe that just one person was living there. So that's
what I was saying earlier.
I was worried initially when you guys went on air, and we saw the flames coming out of this home, and we see everything that this home is offering. Where's the family? How many people were living here, and where are they? And I pray that they are safe.
If those walls could talk, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of freaky to see, what the house used to be compared to what it is now, and, the ending situation with, potential suspect, with a self-inflicted gunshot wound right in the backside of the home, and that what used to be a home, now nothing but ashes, and, really just...
And how long had that person lived there, or were they renting?
Yeah.
Or so... Yeah, to have such a house, and you think, this person must have had this great life, and they're living out there in the remote area that they must love to ranch. And
it just goes to show you never know what happened behind closed doors.
Right, and the mental state of the shooter or the person, and then we haven't heard about anyone else being there at the house at the time that the fire broke out. So who knows where anyone else was, or what red flags could have been leading up to the shooting prior to this, where they knew this person was disgruntled. Right. Did they know there was going to be an issue? So, yeah, just as a look inside at that home, just crazy. And to see it burned to the ground now. And
not
what
much,
was
but
lost.
It looks like the casita is all that's left of it. And what's inside there.
There were some horses nearby, and you pointed that out earlier. It didn't look that they had to be evacuated or anything, but a lot of ranch land, too. Another water drop to get the last of those flames.
Close. It's just a little harder to get to, that little spot of the corner. But
and it didn't catch the trees on fire.
But surprisingly.
It didn't spread, and so I'm just grateful that, this didn't lead to an even bigger, wilder brush fire that could have just swept through some of the other ranch houses.
You see.
Nearby. We even have a state assembly member, along with our local supervisors, but he tweeted out as well, Richard Bloom from the California State Assembly. He's saying that he's deeply distressed over this tragic and senseless violence against those who protect us. So as the news spreads in this political world, it goes back to the amount of gun violence that we have seen, and the uptick that we've also seen in LA County. Very concerning. City of Agoura Hills also sending their condolences with heavy hearts to those affected by the shooting that occurred today there at Fire Station 81 in Agua Dulce. And we stand behind you in this difficult time. Fire Station 81. And in cases like this, I also just think in the days ahead, it's not going to be an operation. So they're going to have to come up with some sort of game plan to protect this community. As I mentioned, you know, how just dry and dangerous on top of all this, the fires have been this year. So they'll have to figure out, I guess, how they work around the investigation and continue to respond to any kind of emergency calls that come in.
Oh yeah, completely. And, you know, just breaks your heart to hear that, you know, one firefighter has lost his life. And as for that other person, we really don't know how that person's doing. Hopefully at this press conference with LA County Fire, we'll learn a little bit more, you know, but that's expected to happen around 3 o'clock this afternoon. And Jasmine, it looks like the fire is out. I don't see any flames. Do you see?
No, and I don't see any personnel going back in besides those two, it looked like SWAT members walking out to survey the home. So not a lot of activity yet in terms of the investigation beginning at this second scene here, or the coroner arriving yet either to get the body. That would be.
And you know, it takes time. When we saw the bomb squad come, it was hours after the shooting that the bomb squad made its way to the house, you know, so they definitely have to travel a little bit. But well, pulling out a little bit, you could see just how isolated this area is. And yeah, that's what's left of that once beautiful home.
They describe it as a hilltop home, so it's a trek to get up there. Staged all around this big property. Yeah, neighbors, and Jeff's been talking to those neighbors, and they didn't even really know who was living there at the time.
Which was interesting considering it's such a small community.
Right. Or that, and in fact, was it an LA County firefighter that you wouldn't know that an LA County firefighter was so close? Or didn't sound like many people were there though. It did sound like, you know, you would see multiple people. If there was a big family and you saw cars coming and going.
Oh, completely.
And if this just a year ago it had changed hands or been sold about a year ago.
So July 2020, yeah.
So maybe some new owners or renters and whatever the issues were, but somehow linked. Yeah, there's obviously a connection to the suspect and why this person chose to go back to this home.
Yeah, and this is the hard part now is, you know, there's not a lot of evidence left. If anything, a lot of that property was burned. So it's going to be interesting as crews go in there and, you know, SWAT goes in there and detectives go in there to try to piece together, maybe find a, you know, some sort of motive as to why this person did what they did. But really just heartbreaking, especially, you know, for these neighbors. And they're not used to this kind of commotion. They're not used to something like this happening. And obviously this is a huge deal to find out that one of their neighbors is potentially the murder suspect of someone who killed a local firefighter. And Jeff Nguyen has been out there, you know, talking to different neighbors and, you know, hearing what they have to say. And, you know, they've been sharing what they can, but not a lot to share. And again, if you're just joining us right now, we are focusing on two different crime scenes for this fire station shooting. We have the original call, which happened in Agua Dulce at the fire station, and then 10 miles away is where that suspect allegedly went. That is in Acton. That is the house fire that you are seeing right now. But definitely, you know, a tight-knit community, a small community, and they're only about 10 miles apart. And in an area like that there's not a lot of people living, 10 miles doesn't take long to get to. It's not like living in Los Angeles, the city of Los Angeles, where it takes a little bit longer. But you know, in the beginning, you know, in this community, hearing that there's an active shooter, they had to be very careful. And, you know, they weren't exactly sure who they were looking for. And as I was telling Jasmine, once they got to that neighborhood, I could see deputies and detectives interviewing and talking to different neighbors because they weren't sure what they were looking for, I'm sure, or who, or, you know, who was involved.
Right. We're going to pause on this for a few seconds because we have other news happening. Other breaking news coming in, not major, but I can tell you that our producers are just telling me that we've had a magnitude 3.4 earthquake that just happened, and people definitely felt it 15 miles from Temecula. So again, just a 3.4. We're going to pull up the quake map here in Aguanga. This is near Hemet, Lake Elsinore. Again, 15 miles, they're saying, from Temecula. So you felt the shaking. No reports of any serious injuries, but definitely rattled some shelves, and people are tweeting about it. And as always the case, it spreads very quickly on social media where people are asking, hey, did you feel it? Yes, I did. We're okay. And then the local authorities there will, of course, go out into the street. Firefighters, as they do, will survey for damage and gas leaks.
This is the last thing we need right now, Jasmine.
It just,
Thankfully, it wasn't no damage.
Again, this is what these firefighters do. You know,
yeah.
They're there for us, and that's why it affects all of us so closely when we hear about, you know, our local law enforcement officers, our firefighters who protect us every day, and this hits close to home for everyone.
Yeah, it really does. And we're just about 20 minutes away from that press conference with some of the county leaders and also fire officials as well. We believe the fire chief is going to be there to talk a little bit about what they can say. Likely they'll talk about this firefighter and, you know, just talk a little bit about who this person was. And, you know, obviously for the family and the friends and loved ones, it's just a very devastating, traumatic experience to learn something like this. And but it's just one of those situations where this is still a developing story. I mean, the SWAT team and detectives haven't even really made their way all the way up into the house. So this is one of those situations that will likely go on throughout the day for several hours. And, you know, it is almost summer, so it stays light a little bit longer, giving detectives more time to do some more investigation. And hopefully in the not too distant future, we'll hear from LA County Sheriff's Department and what they can say. Obviously, if there was a threat to the community, they would let us know right away. We heard a couple hours ago one of the detectives talk about how there's no dire threat to law enforcement. We can assume that's to the community as well. So in that situation, they probably want to figure out what they can say and then talk to the media. But as we know, this is still active.
Very difficult day for them.
Oh, completely. And, you know, it's devastating for so many people, for sure.
And our local leaders already obviously sounding off, and it brings up so much pain in terms of talking about this yet again. We had the deputy who was just shot and killed, San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputy shot and killed yesterday in the Yucca Valley. So many of those in law enforcement not only dealing with the pain from that, but then hearing about their brothers and sisters in the fire department dealing with another tragic shooting, a murder of one firefighter shot and killed this morning, another also shot and taken to the hospital, his or her condition unknown, but 2 fire personnel, 1 dead, and then the suspect driving about 10 miles away and ending up at this home in Acton that caught fire, and that suspect, believed to be the shooter, dying of a self-inflicted gunshot wound and whose body was then discovered in the backyard pool area. So that is where we are at this point since the active shooting took place at around 11 this morning in Agua Dulce, and planning for a news conference at 3 p.m. with all of our local, with the fire chief, as you mentioned, Chris. You have supervisors arriving. Supervisor Barger saying she's on the way there. They all want to, you know, support each other through this and see what kind of action, of course, needs to be taken and what kind of support they can give to those affected.
Yeah, hopefully we learn a little bit more, but just a heartbreaking day. So what is it? 10:54 is when this initially happened, 11, 12, 1, 2. So what, we're coming on 4 hours?
Yeah,
I'm bad at
close to
math
4
right now.
hours later.
I mean, 4 hours later and still a very active scene, and it'll likely go on throughout the day. One of the things I did see is, so right now, I believe, are we still in Acton? Is this where the fire is?
At the home there.
That is the home still. Oh, that one.
We are just getting, okay, so there you have it. I mean, and they are moving in, and I know our signal's a little choppy. We're trying to take different shots here overhead of the home that was burning there in Acton, but I guess that
they are moving in, yeah, like way more.
Tighter shot, definitely showing the SWAT team members advancing and making their way around the perimeter, and then they will slowly get closer and closer to that. It doesn't look, I mean, you look at what's left, and it doesn't look very big at all now. But just what was there, what we showed you in that real estate video compared to, it's just so strange that, I mean, like you said, if the walls could talk, I mean, what happened to this person to make them go on this kind of rampage? And
Oh, completely.
To shoot and kill a firefighter and injure another.
And out of curiosity, where does SWAT go from here? I mean, there's not much left of a home, so where do they...
They got to get arson teams in, so that's going to have to be their assistance in this.
And, they still are staying back a little bit, but potentially that's because, they're still dealing with that fire. There's still a little bit of flames left in that far corner, but 1 or 2 more water drops and that fire should be out, especially if they make contact with the water landing. But, yeah, not much, but the most activity at this home that we've seen since. And do we still have Jeff Nguyen out there on the ground? Okay, we're still waiting on that.
Okay,
but Jeff Nguyen is there, and he's been talking to neighbors. So I'm curious if the neighbors have heard anything or if law enforcement, because sometimes they won't talk to the media, but they'll talk to neighbors. And then that's how we kind of get an insight of like, hey, this is going to happen X, Y, and Z. So I'm curious to know if the neighbors have been talked to by authorities. I'm sure some of them have.
Yeah, to try to glean any kind of information, what they might have known. So the shooting took place, again, LA County Fire Department Station number 81, that's the 8700 block of Sierra Highway. And they tweeted out very quickly that with heavy hearts, that they could confirm that tragic shooting occurred. They just couldn't tell us at the time, that early on, how many people had been killed or shot.
Right.
But they knew right away. I mean, they had gotten
within
word,
an hour of the initial shooting, the initial call.
Getting the word out to the community that this had happened. Yeah, very heavy hearts. As we go back out there to Jeff Nguyen, who's been on the scene there near this home where it's believed the suspect died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and the fire has finally died down there in Acton. So, Jeff, what else have you learned?
Hey, I'm having a problem with my IP because a bunch of people are talking in my ear, so I wasn't sure if Jasmine and Chris, you tossed to me or not, so I'm going to just start talking if you don't mind. For the first time today, we actually saw an LA County Fire Department vehicle roll in here. It was one of the battalion chiefs. So right now, bear with us because you've got another vehicle. This one, bear with me one sec. Let me try to get around here. Is from the Sheriff's Department. So this is an armored vehicle. It's one of the Bearcats. As you can see at the top of this Bearcat, there's also one of those high-powered water hoses as well. So not really sure as to why they are sending this vehicle to the scene. So there may be, a certain situation up there dealing with the residual flames that are still burning or the hot spots, but that's a pressurized water canyon that's attached to that Bearcat. We tried to speak to the battalion chief from LA County Fire that rolled up there, but he was not willing to stop and chat with us. I can tell you that, the fire department has a number of different specialty investigators. Some of them are arson investigators. Some of them, along with carrying their fire department badge, they also have a certain level of law enforcement protections and jurisdiction as well. Some of the specialized firefighters can arrest people. Some of them also carry guns with them. So right now I'm not really sure as to what the specification or the specialization for that particular battalion chief that just rolled by us, but we can tell you a number of the neighbors around here say that the property has changed hands a number of times through the years. If I may, I'm going to step aside so you can get a better look at the property that we've been covering all day, because we still see this sort of aerial bucket brigade heading over to that property. At this point, that is the Sheriff's SIB, which is the Special Investigations Bureau. They typically do a lot of the rescues. Right now, I think what their mission is reconnaissance. Certainly the Sheriff's Department isn't going to do any sort of water drops, but they can kind of be an eye in the sky while the water dropping aircraft kind of go in unison and kind of do the sort of choreography, dropping one by one their payloads of water. In addition to the fire department, the only fire department vehicle being here and that Bearcat, there were a number of horse trailers that headed up there. We tried to speak to some of those folks on camera. However, they did tell us on camera that some of the homeowners that live at the top of the hill, who are neighbors with the home that burned, they have horses. And so their family friends basically went up there to get their horses out of the way. The folks that went to go up there with the horse trailers did tell us that they are not connected to the home that burned. They are basically being a good friend and helping folks who have horses get their horses out of there. About an hour ago or so, SoCal Edison had one of its bucket trucks go up there, and one of the deputies out here told me that the reason SoCal Edison went up there was to basically cut off the electricity to the property that's burning, to basically reduce the risk to firefighters as well as the sheriff's department and all of the investigators that are heading up there. So right now things are certainly a lot more relaxed than they were, but I think it's fair to say at this point, you know, it appears the fire may be at a better handle at this point, but what's ahead should be the crime scene processing process right now. Guys, we'll send it back to you.
All right, Jeff, thank you so much for keeping us up to date there at the scene of the house fire in Acton, where the suspect is believed to have ended their life in the backyard by the pool area. And just now, SWAT team members moving in and canvassing the area, beginning that part of the investigation at the second scene here from where the active shooting happened just before 11 this morning. So again, here is what we know. A firefighter shot and killed and another injured at this Los Angeles County Fire Station in Agua Dulce, Fire Station 81, if you're familiar with the area. The shooting believed to be then linked, as we've been talking about. The suspect ended up here at this home. Not sure how they're connected to this home, but they ended up here with that large fire. It had been burning for hours, and just now we are seeing most of the flames now out. But that home, a total loss. It burned to the ground, as you can see. We have Hilda Solis and other supervisors on their way for that news conference in 10 minutes from now, so hang with us. But tweeting out just their heavy hearts. And I just can't believe that this has now happened. It just seems we're having way too many of these, not only workplace shootings, but of these officers and firefighters being killed in the line of duty. And we're coming from one tragedy to the next. And I'm, you know, it's hard to deal with this, and I just feel so bad for these communities and the law enforcement and firefighter community in general, with the deputy killed yesterday and that traffic stop shooting, and now we have these two firefighters, you know, becoming victims of another workplace shooting.
And as you mentioned, that news conference is expected to start at 3 p.m. And Desmond Shaw joins us live over Agua Dulce, Fire Station 81, where that shooting first happened. Desmond, how does it look out there? What are you seeing?
Yeah, we're just looking at the homicide detectives from LA County Sheriff's Department here. You see them all conferring, conferencing down here. They had been inside of the site of the shooting here with the sheriff's deputies right in this area. There are 3 entrances on this side. We'll show you as we come back around, but we have where they keep one of the fire engines, and then what looked to be like a garage, or it might just be a hangout area or something for the firefighters where they congregate, and then the main entrance. And they were hanging out kind of in that main, I shouldn't say hanging out, they were kind of conferring. It looked like really examining what was kind of in the middle of the building there. So they're outside right now conferring with sheriff's deputies. And we had also seen a battalion chief go down into this shed right here. And here is another investigator coming out right here. So we actually, earlier when this was all transpiring, they had rushed, it was LA County Fire's Air Rescue 22 that we believe actually landed right here on Sierra Highway to airlift the injured firefighter, the one whose life they could still save, and he is currently at Henry Mayo Hospital in Santa Clarita Valley. His condition is unknown. Now that we've come to the other side here, this is the area where I've been seeing all of the attention being focused, this middle entrance right here. So I know, a lot of firehouses have areas where a lot of the firefighters, congregate when they're standing by, kind of a rec room or a break room. So that may have actually been where the shooting occurred just before 11 this morning. And we also understand that the emergency call actually came in from this truck right here in the center of the shot. As it was unfolding, it sounds like some of the firefighters rushed out to get out of the building and actually radioed that into sheriff's deputies from that truck right here. Again, that was all just before 11 o'clock. So the investigation just getting underway. Sierra Highway, you can see that it is shut down, will certainly be shut down for the duration of this one. May be a minor complication for people, trying to get through the area later on this afternoon. Of course, Sierra Highway is a really good alternate to the 14 freeway, so certainly something that people need to be apprised of if they're going to try to come through later on this afternoon. I doubt they'll be able to use Sierra Highway, but here again you see the investigators at her all just kind of running through the motions of recreating what exactly happened this morning, how it all transpired. So you could see just how many people get involved in an investigation like this. Chris and Jasmine, back to you.
All right, Des, thanks so much for that update. Yeah, and I do have a quick update that we do know that the Sheriff's Enforcement Bureau, the Special Enforcement Bureau, their members have cleared this property of the home there that burned to the ground in Acton, where they found what they believe to be the suspect in the backyard. But they have cleared the property, so now they can actually go in and see what else they can find to further their investigation. So that is why you're seeing, and what we saw, those SWAT team members finally moving in and getting that much closer and being able to calmly congregate so close to the property and fill the rest of their team in on what happened.
Yeah, they have to be very careful, especially with situations like this where they don't know exactly what they're dealing with. They just know that they're dealing with somebody who shot and killed a firefighter and potentially shot another one. And you could see they're still probably looking over that home to see if there's any more flames or any hot spots that they can get out, so they can start the criminal part of this investigation, putting out the fire. Obviously their first goal before they move in and do any more. And we are just minutes away, about 5 minutes away from that news conference that is expected to start at 3 o'clock. Obviously, that's the time they're giving us. It could happen a little bit later. When you're dealing with situations like this, it's definitely a fluid situation, but we do know 2 county supervisors will be talking. We know the fire chief will be talking as well, and also waiting to hear from the sheriff's department to see what they can talk about. But the fact that they have cleared this area so people can go and investigate is good. And this is pretty interesting, Jasmine. You've got this SWAT person who is on the hillside, kind of from a distance, and I'm not sure if they're checking for evidence or what, but or maybe they're going to be hoisted back up into that helicopter, because you saw the little.
Or they were put there as kind of a surveillance.
Maybe, yeah.
Just to see if anyone else was coming or going from the property. So, yeah, and I guess that's the other angle, is we don't know how big of a perimeter they kept around this property. And
there he goes.
You're right, and being taken away just like that from the scene, knowing that. And I guess that gives credence to the fact that, so the all clear has been given by the Sheriff's Enforcement Bureau, that they've gone in, they said, okay, no other threats that we know about. And so we will be closing the perimeter tightly around this home. So interesting, yeah. The stuff that goes on.
Amazing how quickly they got him back up. As
they train and they plan, unfortunately and tragically, for situations just like this, So they have a plan of action in place, active shooter, get the details, follow the suspect, and then surround the property where they tracked this person down.
And unfortunately, there's not much left, not much evidence to really go through, to figure out a motive. And, if anyone else was inside that home, we hope that no one was inside that home. But at this point, we really don't know. And, it'll take some time. It'll take hours of investigating to figure out more information. So that's still to be determined. But if you're watching us right now, we do have team coverage of this. We have field crews on the ground in Agua Dulce, also in Acton, and we also have Sky 9 in the air covering both sides, so getting all vantage points.
I've been trying to text some of Supervisor Barger's people and Supervisor Solis's communication contacts because they've been sharing some information I'm seeing with other media outlets, more details about the firefighter who's injured right now in the hospital, in terms of giving details about the condition, and it sounds like hopefully the injuries are not life-threatening at this point, but I'm trying to get confirmation from the supervisor's office, and within minutes hopefully we will hear from them. But the fact that that person is in the hospital right now and praying that their injuries are okay. Supervisor Barger did just mention, Acton, Agua Dulce residents, just be aware of all the road closures. Even though they've tightened up the perimeter a bit, they're not going to let anyone close, and so you need to plan ahead. Just listen to the guidance of the first responders. Stay safe. Don't try to get in there or block the roadway.
So the press conference is actually going to be in Santa Clarita.
Yes, at another fire department. So they are not going to be there at the scene of where this happened.
Okay.
Yeah. And she had tweeted out, the Fire Station 150 in Santa Clarita, if anyone's familiar with that. And that's where they are setting up right now, that we can tell you. We have a crew there, and as soon as I find out who is, maybe we can take a shot of the news conference and see that setup underway in terms of the number of people that will be talking. The fire chief, I'm sure. Actually, they gave a list. We do know not only the fire chief and those supervisors, but more support staff to show up. And that injured firefighter reportedly taken to Henry Mayo Hospital, and they have not released a statement yet on that condition, but they said they will if they get the okay to do that, to give us any updates. So that may come as well in the next few minutes from the hospital on the injured firefighter. But again, tragically, one firefighter shot and killed this morning in that shooting that took place there at Department 81, Station 81.
Just awful to hear that, and it makes you wonder, was there a connection? Did they know the two? Was it isolated, focused? We really don't know, and you can't really speculate at this point as to what's going on, but it will be interesting to see what they have to say at this press conference. I mean, obviously, this happened about 4 hours ago, so there's a lot of questions out there, and a lot of those questions will not be answered, at least not this soon. But taking a live look at what used to be this home, not a home anymore. The home literally burnt to the ground. We know crews are out there right now. SWAT team is out there. They gave the all clear, so the crime part of this investigation can continue for sure.
I want to thank our viewers for bearing with us, and I know it can be frustrating when we have the information that we have and we don't want to say anything that hasn't been confirmed yet. So we are doing our best to bring you everything that we can confirm with our authorities, and showing you even some of that video. If you hadn't tuned in earlier, if this is the first time you're looking at this, look at on the right. That's the home that has now burned to the ground, where the fire was just ripping through this hilltop mansion, where they believe the shooting suspect ended up killing themselves in the backyard by the pool area following the active shooting that took place at Station 81 just before 11 this morning, where a firefighter was shot and killed. Another in the hospital right now. But yeah, and this has been, a developing situation. Chris, and you were with DeMarco this morning, and that's why my phone ran out of batteries, because you just have everyone in the community praying, and you hear about these firefighters, and you hear about, especially an active shooter, any workplace shooting is so tragic. But everyone has a connection to their fire department and the work that these men and women do, and put themselves, in danger every single day to protect us. And so it's just so tragic. And
one of the things that I saw that was fascinating is the fire, this house fire. It was burning for a really long time until
they couldn't approach.
And they couldn't approach it, so it just kept burning and burning. And once they started doing water drops is when the fire, it appeared that a fire started to spread a little bit to other parts of the house. But it was at one part of the house for a very long time. Heavy, thick black smoke was seen. And what you're looking at the right-hand side was probably, what would you say, an hour and a half ago? An hour ago? Once the fire spread to the other parts of the home, from there it quickly, turned to rubble, which is what you see in the live shot on Sky 9. But yeah, definitely just one of those stories that just breaks your heart.
And the fact that we don't know if this shooter was a firefighter or a former firefighter, or why this person went and targeted this exact station and had some sort of issue with the people inside, and how many people were at the station at the time, and what they witnessed, and who was able to call 911, or was there any kind of, I mean, they obviously couldn't stop the shooter from doing what that person did, from what he or she did, but why the shooter left when they did and escaped from the station and was able to get back to this house.
Right.
So the timeline of events, just trying to figure out, what exactly happened.
And
so,
we will learn more once this press conference starts, which it's supposed to start around 3, so it will start at any moment. And just to let you know, Jasmine Veal is going to take a little break. Juan Fernandez will be joining us now to cover this breaking story happening in Agua Dulce and also Acton. And still a developing scene 4 hours later. At this point, we can tell you 2 people were shot inside that fire station. One of them, a firefighter, has died. We're still trying to figure out how that other person is doing. We're hoping that person will be okay. Maybe that is something we will learn in that press conference. But, it just breaks your heart to hear that one person has been shot and killed, that person being a firefighter, because keep in mind, this is a very small community. And Acton and Agua Dulce, they are not far from each other. And if you're watching now, we want to let you know we do have team coverage of this shooting investigation. We have Jeff Nguyen, who's live at the scene you see right here. This is where the suspect potentially shot himself and killed himself in front of this house that is now rubble. And we have Hermela Aragawi, who joins us live from the fire station. Let's see if we can get Hermela to talk a little bit about what she sees from the ground as this investigation continues. This is a 2-part criminal investigation. This is where the first shooting happened. Hey, Micah, our producer in the booth, is Hermela available? All right, we'll let you know if we get her. But yeah, keep in mind, it's 10 miles apart, but in a small community like this, it's only about 15 minutes. And Juan Fernandez is just joining us. Juan, thank you so much for joining us. Just to give you a little wrap up of what happened, this all started around 10:54, shortly before 11 o'clock. A suspect went into a fire station. Shots were fired. 2 personnel were shot at. One of them was a firefighter. That firefighter, we're learning, tragically passed away from the gunshot wounds. The other person, also personnel, we're still trying to figure out how that person.
Was that the person shot in the leg?
That was the second person that was shot, and hopefully that person's okay. We should be getting an update at 3 o'clock, and then it led to Acton, which is about 10 miles away. That suspect allegedly went to that home, set that house on fire. LA County Fire showed up. LA County Sheriff's Departments showed up as well. There were reports that there were threats from this person that was telling law enforcement, hey, you come near this house, I'm going to shoot you. So obviously they had to stay back because, they wanted to make sure that they were okay. Then fast forward a little bit later, and there was a body that was found in the back of the house. They believe that suspect took their own life. And that was where that scene was.
And we don't know who this house belongs to, whether it belongs to somebody at the firehouse maybe, or this person who possibly committed suicide just outside the house, right? We don't know that yet.
We do not know that, but we do know that property records show the person that owns that house either works for LA County Fire or was a former worker for LA County Fire. And with Hermela, we saw in her shot that the LA County, or LA Times is reporting that the shooter was a firefighter. So that's stuff we still have to confirm on our own, but the LA Times is reporting that. And speaking of Hermela Aragawi, she joins us live from Fire Station 81, where the first crime scene started. Hermela, tell us, what do you see? What does it look like out there?
Hi, Chris and Juan. The scene honestly hasn't changed very much, so we've just been trying to dig into the suspected shooter, the home where where the fire was started belongs to a veteran firefighter, a firefighter specialist that either was working for this fire department or recently as last year was working for the department. He bought the home, or the home was sold to him in July, just last July. So he hasn't been there a very long time, and it was sold for whatever reason, a cheap price for what it is. I mean, it essentially looks like a mansion. We're trying to speak with a real estate agent nearby to get some details on how that happened. And also, I think Jasmine mentioned this earlier, was he in that home alone? Or were there others that lived there? And we have heard reports that Supervisor Barger talked about the second firefighter that was injured, was just shot in the leg. Fortunately, he is expected to survive. We are speaking with her office to confirm that, but I'm sure we'll get some confirmation on that at the press conference as well. So again, just going through the timeline here, the shooter came here, shot a couple of people, shot two firefighters, or two fire department employees rather. One did not make it, and the second is being treated at a local hospital, and they are expected to survive. And then he went over to Jeff's location where he set that blaze. I'm going to toss it back to you guys because it looks like the press conference may be underway.
That's right, Hermela. We're just going to hear they're setting up for a news conference. It's going to start in just a minute or so. As you see there, they're preparing the podium for the speakers to come up. And this is the first time all afternoon and all day that we're finally going to get confirmation about what happened here. Let's go ahead and see if we listen in. We see Sheriff Villanueva. He's there in the background, as well as members of the LA City Council. Let's go ahead and listen.
Good afternoon. I'm Supervisor Catherine Barger, representing the 5th District. My heart is heavy for our Los Angeles County Fire Department, especially our team at Fire Station 81, as we mourn the loss of our firefighter. Today we're going to have Fire Chief Daryl Osby speak, Chief Alex Villanueva speak, and Dr. Contreras will be available from Henry Mayo Newhall as well. I'd like to acknowledge Congressman Mike Garcia, as well as Mayor Bill Miranda and Mayor Hofbauer from the city of Palmdale. But with that, I'd like to hand it over to Chief Osby. I know we have a lot of questions. We want to hear the facts. So with that, Chief Osby.
Good afternoon. My name is Daryl Osby, and I'm the fire chief of the Los Angeles County Fire Department. And as I stand here, I stand here with a heavy heart. And today is truly a sad day and a tragic day for the Los Angeles County Fire Department. And I stand here from the perspective that you see other people do, but I just never thought it would be me nor our fire department family that would suffer this type of loss. As a fire chief, and I always talk to the members of my organization, and I always tell them that their safety is my #1 priority, that I expect them to come to work on time, put in a good day's work, and go home safely. And I recognize, and we all recognize, that the work that our firefighters and firefighter paramedics do is a very dangerous and arduous profession, and in many times that they put their lives in danger to protect and serve others when they receive 911 calls for service. But yet, as a fire chief, I never thought that when our firefighters face danger, that they would face that danger at one of our community fire stations. At approximately 10:55 this morning, we had a tragic shooting at a fire station 81 in Agua Dulce, which is one of our Los Angeles County fire stations. And it's with a heavy heart that I stand here and say that one of our firefighter specialists succumbed from his injuries. He was a brave, committed, loyal member of our department for over 20 years. And he was a 44-year-old male. who died of his injuries. I had the opportunity to recently talk to his family and other members of our department as it pertains to our fallen member during this difficult time. And you can only imagine how they feel for the loss of their coworker and a loss of a husband, a son, a father, and dear friend. Additionally, at Fire Station 81, a fire captain who's 54-year-old male sustained a gunshot, and he was transported to Henry Mayo Hospital, where he remains in critical but stable condition. Tragically, we learned that the shooter was an off-duty firefighter who came to the fire station. Following the shooting, we learned that the firefighter returned to his house. He barricaded himself. The home was set on fire, and he was also found deceased. And that's under investigation by the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. To ensure the proper care and support of our family members, friends, and team members, I've activated our chaplain program, our peer support team, and our mental health behavioral specialists that are speaking to the families, our co-workers, and our friends during this challenging time. I cannot stand here to express my feelings and the deepest sympathies and prayers to the family and friends and colleagues of our fallen firefighter and our injured firefighter. This morning when I received the news, it was some of the worst news that I've heard in my career. And as a fire chief, I've dealt with a lot of death and a lot of fallen members of my department. And I've always prayed that we would never have a line of duty death, and never thought that if it occurred, that it would occur in this fashion. I know that as firefighters, we are in a profession of providing assistance to others, but I ask that in this particular situation, that we ask you for your support, that we ask you for your assistance, that we ask you for your prayers in our time of need. This is an ongoing investigation, so I'm limited in the information that I could release. I will have the sheriff and his team come speak afterwards. But on behalf of the entire Los Angeles County Fire Department, I want to thank everybody for their thoughts, their prayers, and their support during this difficult time. While this is under investigation still, I would like to bring to the podium Sheriff Alex Villanueva.
Chief Osby, our condolences go out to your entire family and to the LA County Fire Department and to everyone impacted by this tragedy, obviously including the members of the families involved. Our thoughts and prayers go out to everyone. This morning at 10:53 a.m., our department received a 911 call at 8700 Sierra Highway in unincorporated Agua Dulce, and this is the location of LA County Fire Station 81. Santa Clarita Station deputies, Lancaster and Palmdale Station deputies arrived at the location at 11:18 a.m. You have to appreciate there's quite a bit of distance between all these places, and discovered there had been a shooting at the station itself, 81. Our Sheriff's Enforcement Bureau, Special Enforcement Bureau, the SWAT team, they responded immediately, followed by LASD Homicide Bureau and Arson as well. So this is an ongoing investigation. Right now I want to bring to the podium the man in charge of the investigation, Lieutenant Brandon Dean from our Sheriff's Homicide Bureau.
Thank you, Sheriff. So, as the Sheriff indicated, this is obviously very early on in the investigation, so this is the preliminary information that we have as of so far. So, as the Sheriff and the Chief indicated, approximately 10:50 this morning, our Palmdale Sheriff Station received a call of a gunshot victim in the 8700 block of Sierra Highway at LA County Fire Station number 81. Deputies from Palmdale Sheriff Station as well as Santa Clarita immediately responded. Upon their arrival, they discovered one victim, male white, 44 years of age, a firefighter engineer suffering from multiple gunshot wounds to the upper torso. He was unfortunately pronounced deceased at the scene. The second individual, a 54-year-old firefighter, captain for the LA County Fire Department, was also suffering from gunshot wounds. He was immediately transported to Henry Mayo, where he was treated and went into surgery, and as far as I hear is listed in critical but stable condition. Based on witness statements at the scene that were at the fire station when the shooting happened, they gave a name of the suspect and a description of the suspect vehicle. That vehicle was linked to a residence in the 2600 block of Bent Spur Drive, and we know that that suspect that shot those two firemen is also a off-duty fireman that also works at LA County Station number 81, the same location. Deputies immediately started responding to the suspect's residence, at which time they also received a house fire call, and the house in question on the 2600 block of Bent Spur Drive was on fire. As the sheriff indicated, members of our Special Enforcement Bureau immediately started to respond, and they contained the location. While containing the location, they saw an individual in a small pool outside of the actual residence, appeared to be suffering a gunshot wound to the head. At this time, it's unknown if it's self-inflicted or not, but we know that no deputies fired, and we don't believe anybody else was at the location, so it appears to be self-inflicted. We cannot with 100% certainty say that that is our suspect because we have not made an approach on the residence yet. The house is still burning. Once they feel it is safe to make an approach, our Special Enforcement Bureau officers will make an approach and clear the location. They didn't immediately make an approach because we had gathered information that they believed there was nobody else inside the location and that the one person that we were looking for was outside the location. Again, this is very early on. The actual motive of the crime, we're unsure yet. We still have to conduct interviews with all the fire station personnel that worked at the station all 3 shifts, family members, conduct next of kin notifications, process both crime scenes, first the firehouse, and then ultimately the house that is on fire once it's deemed to be safe to process.
Now I'm going to ask Dr. Contreras with Henry Mayo to come up and talk about the situation with the individual in the hospital right now.
Good afternoon. It's always a heavy heart and deep sadness for any trauma surgeon and for any medical facility on a day like this. And my condolences go to the families involved in this tragedy. And the LA County firefighters are our brothers in the protection of the community as trauma surgeons. First and foremost, I would like to acknowledge the family. Second, I'd like to discuss the shooting. As far as the hospital was mobilized at approximately 11 o'clock and 11:30, in which an active shooting event was occurring. We were mobilized and prepared, and I would like to acknowledge the hospital for being prepared handily for that event. We received one firefighter in this tragedy, a gunshot wound victim, which we took to the operating room and stabilized him. He's in critical condition. All life-threatening injuries have been addressed, and the recovery process is ongoing at this time.
are going to take questions, and I don't know who wants to handle that from the PIO. Go ahead. Does anyone have any questions? Go ahead.
Yeah. Wait before.
Oh, you want to do Spanish first? Okay, we're going to do Spanish translation, and then we'll have questions. So hold that question. You'll go first. All right.
A eso de las 10:53 de esta mañana.
All right, while we're listening to Sheriff Villanueva give the Spanish-speaking language an update on what happened today, we are here to basically report and confirm what we've been reporting all day long, pretty much them confirming what you had been reporting, Chris, what happened earlier today regarding the timeline of the shooting, that the shooter was an off-duty firefighter at that very same station. So now it appears this was some sort of workplace shooting. But what was very interesting, they said that they still have not been able to approach the house. It's still smoldering, apparently, and that there is a body outside, which looks to appear a gunshot, self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. But again, they still haven't confirmed if that is the person, but most likely it will be. But they still haven't approached the home yet.
And we heard from Fire Chief Daryl Osby talking a little bit about what happened, and very emotional, talking about what happened. And he confirmed that the two people who were shot, one of them, one of the firefighters that passed away, he talked about how he was a husband, he was a father, a friend. So you can only imagine what that family and loved ones.
20-year veteran of the department.
Yeah, and the second person was a fire captain, 54-year-old, and he was taken to the hospital, Henry Mayo Hospital, in critical but stable condition. Hopefully he will be okay. We're learning that he's currently undergoing surgery.
Yeah, the doctors said they addressed all his life-threatening injuries. We were reporting earlier that he was shot in the leg. Of course, there's a lot of, trauma that could happen with a shooting to the leg. So at least we know that he's been stabilized, but still in critical condition. And that is the 54-year-old fire captain that we just reported about. The 20-year veteran, the one who passed away, still haven't not received names yet or confirmed names, but he was 44 years old. And again, a 20-year veteran of the department. As for the shooter, he was an off-duty firefighter who apparently came to this station. A shooting took place, and according to witnesses on the scene who told homicide detectives, they identified the person by name. They let them know what car he drove off in. And shortly after that, the house that was located at Bent Spur Drive, the 2600 block of Bent Spur Drive, caught fire, and that's when they said they were able to see someone possibly by the pool with a gunshot wound to the head. But I was hearing earlier, Chris, people saying that he was making threats, the shooter, to other people approaching the house.
We were hearing reports of that. Yeah, it's interesting to hear that this was an off-duty firefighter that was stationed to that fire station. So what the relationship was between him and those other two people, obviously we just know co-workers. How close they were, that we don't know. But yeah, we did hear reports that they're... all right, let's go back to that news conference first. Question and answering
has begun. Let's go.
Con todos los familiares, y entonces podemos determinar eso mismo.
All right, there we go. Looks like he just finished up Spanish speaking.
And questions begin now. Let's listen in.
That's always, workplace violence is some dispute is always a possibility, but until we have interviewed every single one of the potential witnesses there at the scene, all of the employees, family members will be able to ascertain whether or not what it is, and we work on that.
As I mentioned earlier, we had an off-duty firefighter come into the fire station. We don't know what transpired. That's under investigation by the Sheriff's Department. What we do know is that off-duty firefighter shot one firefighter specialist who's a 44-year-old male who passed away. We also know that he shot a 54-year-old male captain who was transported in critical but stable condition to Henry Mayo Hospital. And we also know that that's been linked back to that firefighter's home that came into the fire station. But anything other than that is being investigated by the Sheriff's Department. Is too premature for me to release.
Do we know how many people have been in a fire station?
it was brought to my attention that in this particular station, in this day, it varies, but this particular shift today would be 3 people: a captain, a firefighter specialist, and actually four, a captain, a firefighter specialist, and 2 firefighters. And firefighter specialist is an apparatus driver. I don't know that, and that's all under investigation by the Sheriff's Department. That I don't know. I'm unable to speak to that, but as mentioned by the sheriffs, any administrative actions or current status of the employees and anything related to today will be investigated and released at an appropriate time. Like I said, that's all under investigation, and when the investigative report is available, then I'll be able to speak more specifically to those questions. I cannot speak to the mindset of the shooter. I can just say that it's very tragic and sad that that would be a decision point of one of the members of the Los Angeles County Fire Department, and even more tragic that he came back to a fire station where people were on duty working and shot 2 people. I can't speak to the motive. That's all under investigation. When our firefighters arrived on scene of the fire, we coordinate all the time with the Sheriff Department. They made a determination based on the safety of our personnel to let the fire burn. Once it gets to a condition where they can go do an investigation, then the Sheriff's Department and our arson unit will do a more thorough investigation. That's undetermined at this time. Once we're able to make entry, then we'll make that determination. No, I don't.
Chief, do you know the rank of the off-duty firefighter? The rank?
I'm sorry, the rank of the off-duty firefighter is also a firefighter specialist and engineer. He was off today, so the personnel that were scheduled to work today were at that fire station, and then for whatever reason, the shooter came back to the fire station, but he was not scheduled to work today. I don't know his work schedule. I just know that he was not scheduled to work today, and he came back and confronted the on-duty personnel. Yes, so what we've done is that we have our peer support personnel and our mental health doctor and other support from the County of Los Angeles making an assessment of our personnel as we stand here today, and I have a meeting after this to speak to more personnel. So we've relieved some personnel already, and what we've done for the surrounding fire stations is we brought move-up companies from the basin to relieve them of their responsibilities to enable us to have peer support briefings and mental health assessments of our personnel. And from the outcome of those briefings, we'll make a further assessment who should and who shouldn't be at work, and when they'll be able physically and emotionally stable enough to work. If you can imagine, they lost one of their coworkers, and as a matter of fact, 2 coworkers, and another one's in serious condition. So that is an ongoing assessment. Unfortunately, I have too much experience with dealing with fallen members of my department. I've been with the department now for over 37 years, over 10 as a past fire chief, and I've spoken at over 70 funerals. None as tragic as today, but each conversation I have with the family members and our employees and the friends of their loved ones are different. But you can imagine the proximity to today's event is just very numbing. And in some instances, it's just very hard to even articulate words to express our feelings other than to show our condolences and that we'll be supporting the families and friends. The only thing I can tell you about the shooter, once again, he was scheduled not to work today. He came back to the fire station for whatever reason. The incident occurred. The rest of the conversation, the rest of your question is under investigation right now by the Sheriff's Department. That's still under investigation. As articulated earlier by the Sheriff's Department, there was a victim at the fire, but it wasn't safe for us to go in and identify the body. And if this point can even be identified, it might be something that the coroner might have to do. But nevertheless, that's being investigated by the Sheriff's Department. My understanding of the victim is that he was a career firefighter. I'm assuming you're talking about the person that died. He had been in our job for approximately 20 years. He promoted to the position of firefighter specialist, which drives the fire truck. Started off, I believe, as an explorer in the forestry department. So obviously this was a career path for him. He's worked at some very busy fire stations, and even working at Agua Dulce. That's not a very busy fire station, but a lot of dynamics there, particularly this time of the year due to wildfires. So it takes a lot of courage to work there. Not everybody has the courage and skill set to do that. So the feedback I got from his family and his friends and co-workers, truly dedicated, one of our better firefighters, amazing, and a true loss to our department. And the only thing that I can ask is that we keep him and his family in our prayers. I don't know that information.
Chief, our deepest condolences. Within the history of the LA County Fire Department, has anything like this happened before?
Not that I'm aware of. In one other situation, a couple of situations, I've had people commit suicide and unfortunately even a murder-suicide, but those were done on private residences or private property. I've never experienced, or nor am I aware of a situation where a firefighter came in off duty into what we call a safe house, our home, and conducted this type of activity and shooting in a firehouse. That's I have no recollection nor knowledge of that. No. No. I think that would be a question that the law enforcement can answer. Okay.
Yeah, so any specifics on ballistics, we're not going to release at this time. That's something we obviously have to conduct our interviews. So, I mean, these guys all worked on different shifts. I mean, I'm sure you guys are aware of how fire department shifts work. They work 24 hours. So we have to interview all the people that are assigned to this firehouse that worked on all three different shifts to basically get into Was there any history between these individuals? When was the last time they saw each other? That's all stuff that we still have to conduct. Obviously, we've only been out here for a couple hours now, and this is going to go on for a while. No. We feel fairly confident that that is our shooter, but we can't say that with 100% certainty. Yes, ma'am. Not to our knowledge, no. Any other questions? Well, again, that speaks to kind of what I just said. We still have to interview those witnesses. They are currently, as we speak now, being interviewed by our Homicide Bureau detectives. So that's something that we will acquire through the interviews.
Good. Okay, that's going to conclude today's press conference. Thank you so much.
And that brings to an end the news conference there by the LA County Fire, as well as Sheriff Villanueva, bringing us up to date on all the things that happened today out there in Agua Dulce. And a lot going on, a lot being told to us here. Still don't know the names of the people involved. They haven't released that. Regarding what happened earlier today, we might as well start from the very beginning. We're told that a shooting took place at the firehouse there. At 8700 Sierra Highway. That's Fire Station 81. 2 people were shot. We now know that one was a fire captain, 54 years old. He had a gunshot. He was taken to the hospital. He's in critical but stable condition. A 20-year-old veteran of the department, a firefighter specialist, 44 years old. He passed away. And as the fire captain there was saying, very, very difficult situation out there. These are live pictures right now from Sky 2, Sky 9. As you can see, the house there. This was the second scene in today's shooting. The walls still coming down and still a lot of dark smoke billowing. I believe that was earlier then. This is what it looks like right now there from Sky 2 and Sky 9. As I mentioned, 2 different crime scenes. The second one apparently was the home of an off-duty firefighter. They believe that he was the shooter, came into the firehouse today and then went home, barricaded himself inside the house. A fire was started inside the house, and then apparently a body was found just outside the house by the pool. But something of some interest there, firefighters and investigators have not yet approached the house because they still haven't found that it is safe to do so. As you might imagine, no word if this house was booby-trapped in any way or if there was any other dangers being set there for firefighters to respond to. Out there in the Agua Dulce, Acton area, this fire station, Fire Station 81, only 4 people man it at any given time. You have a fire captain, a fire specialist, and 2 firefighters. So when this shooter, this off-duty firefighter, came to the scene this morning, you know, basically it was probably fully staffed, and 50% of the staff there were victims of this